right, Fepe Akbar, Allergic to Bullshit, featuring Lean Dion. We are live, 4/24/2024 for the IPS Evening Deprogram. Something to listen to as you're doing yard work if you're Ted Stryker. Something to listen to at work if you're Ryler05, joined by X322, Frank Murr. Awesome timing. If you just got here, it is 6:16 p.m. And I came across something about that number, interestingly, just today. Apparently, it's one of the alternate numbers of the beast, 616. And if you look at the side of Trump's hat, the one with the 45, 47 on it, yeah, you can make that into a 911. But 4547 is the 616th prime number. A shout out to Matrix Code Breakers for cracking that one. And we're still waiting that one. We're still awaiting the big event, the culmination, the crescendo of 60 years of predictive programming preparing us for the advent of Trump. Thank you, Multi-C0 Dagger. The IPS appreciates the support as always, and it's absolutely necessary. This tank is I would say it's very much a group effort. This is not one person's perspective. In my view, the world stage, the construct, it's not something that can be seen in one glance, and it requires many different perspectives. And that's what we're doing here with our think tank, is we're assembling and platforming many different vantage points to arrive at, I think, the correct one, or the most sensible one. You could say we are auto-hoax accelerationists here, because we're not just doing this in some corner of the internet in a very academic way, but we're actually more, I would say, critiques. Our criticisms are actually directly targeting those who are perpetrating the big deceptions. In fact, just today, I got blocked by Mindy Robinson, one of these truthers. Mindy M.F. Robinson, I Heart Mindy, Conspiracy Truths. Yeah, she blocked me today. Why? Because she released a documentary and she said, I can prove in my short 28-minute video that the feds were 100% behind January 6th and they killed 4 people on that day. So here she is talking about her documentary that can prove the feds did it and people died. And my response was, if you still maintain that Ashley Babbitt and others died, then you are a propagandist working for the controlled opposition. You know this to be true. I know this to be true. And you can only hide in plain sight as long as those of us who can see are excluded from the conversation. Hashtag auto hoaxers. And that's what got me blocked, because we see through it. We see through the controlled opposition. It's kind of funny how those on the right don't realize that crisis actors exist on their side as well, for their issues as well. And there's this blind spot that is being exploited by these gatekeepers. And I think it's important to call them out, because there are more of them than there are of us right now, but that's going to change. And that's why I think a lot of them are just blocking me now. Maybe they know it's coming. But you can be honest about it. We don't have to pretend like we believe moon landings are real. We don't have to pretend like we believe January 6th was anything other than theater. And we shouldn't operate on the premise that these things are real because they've been accepted by mainstream audiences. We don't have to cater to their delusions. Ryler says, I think they'll sink an aircraft carrier on 616, just a wild guess. At least you admit it's a wild guess. At least you're not claiming that you're decoding an ancient prophecy, and then you just kind of quietly shuffle away when it doesn't come true. Because there are so many of those prophets out there. And I call them out routinely. In fact, today I put a video on the main channel about the JFK resurgence. They've moved from JFK Jr. to JFK worship. And this just comes out of nowhere for a lot of people. Like, what's the origin of it? Well, I know the origin of this JFK fixation, this collective eratomania. And it's real. We can point to flags in 2019, 2020 that said Trump, JFK Jr., 2024. Where do you think that's coming from? We know the origin of all of it. And I put a video up for members. And here's what I decided I would do. Because we have so many Blue Wrench Lodge members on YouTube already, I am going to upload videos specifically for members, but they will go public at the end of each month. So you won't miss anything. But if you want to have all these videos real time, you'll want to subscribe. All right, let's continue. We have a lot to go through today. Predictive programming is abundant as usual. Tom Winter says, NBC News exclusive, we're increasingly concerned about the potential for some kind of coordinated attack here in the homeland, which may be not that different from what you saw against the concert hall in Russia a few weeks ago from ISIS K. And that's from the FBI director. They should just say PSYOP director. This is from a PSYOP entertainment complex director. Carrie Lake here comes out to say, and Carrie Lake, you may know her, she's famous for losing and crying about it. I mean, this election denialism stuff is really just a sad thing to platform yourself on. It's like victim consciousness. Anyway, Carrie Lake says, quote, we are increasingly concerned about the potential for some kind of coordinated attacks on the homeland. Even the FBI director acknowledges our open border makes America vulnerable. I've been calling for secure border for years. So this is agreed upon by both sides that it's going to happen. The question is it going to be someone from outside, someone inside, domestic violent extremist, or external? Illegal alien or someone who's already a citizen, an American nationalist who feels like nobody else should be here. So I'm leaning based on predictive programming as a model. I'm leaning towards it coming from the political right. But you can see how they're already prepared. Now this is something I wanted to bring up. We've been speaking quite a lot about hyperstition, about the worldview as distinct from the world, and about how those who author our worldview, and they have a monopoly on it, there's a consensus they've created, how they can make anything real by throwing it in, and then it goes into our collective psyche, it gets bounced around, and it enters this feedback loop that makes it more than a superstition, more than a propaganda lie. It becomes real. And that's the way the world works. Fake has defeated real. We've already been conquered. A crisis actor on TV will go down in the history books, and you won't. In other words, the fake people are realer than real people. That's just how this thing works. But anyway, Poker and Politics on Twitter is a channel I follow who's anti-conspiracy theorist. Now, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. And if you're a media skeptic, you're not either. That's just what they call you. The mainstream is conspiracy theory, so is the alternate view. But anyway, I'm following Poker and Politics because they're always deconstructing Q, which is something that I find useful, even though they're not entirely in the know about how it all works. That sometimes the conspiracy theorists have a point. But anyway, Poker and Politics made a really interesting tweet here. The statement said, quote, works of fiction talked about something fictional. And now dum-dums have created a huge story about the fictional thing from those works of fiction. You are still the ones who have made this up. So he's referencing Dom Luker, who was recently on Alex Jones. Dom Luker releases a video called 15 Minutes of Adrenochrome in Movie and Music. Now this is an example of a hyperstition, and it's been defined perfectly by Poker and Politics. Something from fiction that has been spread around and it becomes real because enough people believe in it. So it's more than a superstition. They can find evidence of it. Dom Luker went to these tunnels in New York and he found dirty mattresses and he said, this is where they abuse the kids. It becomes real to them. It's very delusional, but it's also very powerful. Also, we're looking at May Day as the next major holiday. So just heads up, May 1st, Communist Holiday, International Workers' Day, but it's also Beltane or May Day. And I was looking up some of the symbolism here, so we should have an idea of what to look for. The maypole represents the phallus of the earth god, the ribbons of the feminine energy of the earth. As people dance around the maypole, they weave the ribbons together, symbolizing the union of the god and goddess. Another tradition of Beltane is the lighting of bonfires. So I've been thinking about the recent fires. The Copenhagen Stock Exchange, the guy from St. Augustine, Maxwell, setting himself on fire. There's likely to be more Beltane fires to come, and you'll notice the activists are already getting active. They're already, right now, there are pro-Palestinian activists swarming college campuses across the country, which we'll get into. But we called this. We said this is every year. Around May Day, you're going to see the communists gathered around the big Washington Monument. And my point being, the pagan holidays, the witches' sabbats, are oddly timed, or rather, a lot of political events are oddly timed with the pagan calendar. And I would say they're one and the same. I think we're all essentially matrix batteries for the system itself, but that we're also on some other level, I think, being appropriated. And that would explain a lot of the strange ritualistic aspects to everything that we're generally observing. Now, let me bring this up having to do with the Burning Man. Again, the Burning Man, this recent one, Maxwell Asrello, was inspired by Aaron Burning Bushnell, another Burning Man, who was burning himself for something else. But he made a point in his manifesto and on his blog to talk about The Simpsons, weirdly enough, and Stanley Kubrick, and the Titan and the Titanic. And I'm looking through it because I'm like, well, what's the inspiration for this guy setting himself on fire? And he points out The Simpsons quite a lot. And he's looking at Matt Groening's original comic series called Life in Hell. And it has this ugly looking bunny who says, "What you see is what you breathe." And this is what Mr. Burning Man wrote, quote, "He's telling us we're in hell world. Another example is the Simpsons movie, which primed us all for COVID, a global event that we're too dumb and divided to resist." Then he mentions Stanley Kubrick. And he says, Stanley Kubrick, or how I learned to stop worrying and love the bomb. He says, I is the public. He's a supervillain telling us he's brainwashing us about nuclear war so we'll get comfortable and complacent and ignore the real threats of the endless militarization and the arms race. But interestingly enough, he refers to Dr. Strangelove as criminal propaganda. Then he goes on to say something about the Titan sub. The Titan sub playing a role and the Titanic. Now, these are just things I'm finding in his manifestos where they're building the case, the media is, that conspiracy theories radicalize people. And now they seem to be pointing out people who are unraveling the threads of their news bent reality, examining the scripting. And I'm finding a lot of Twitter channels, critics of conspiracy theorists, pointing out this guy's obsession with The Simpsons. Because every time there's a psyop, what happens? Mainstream news reports on conspiracy theorists say The Simpsons predicted it. So, not unintentional. I'm catching up on some comments here. Commenter says there's a war of information, defamation by information. Yeah, the info glut, the sea of irrelevance. The truth is out there, but it's lost. You couldn't make anything coherent about it. Linda Curtis has joined us. Ryler05 says, I notice a lot of dates connect to May Day, 1982. Well, May Day is the high point on the pagan calendar. It's not Halloween, it's May Day. It's the anniversary of the Church of Satan. But Beltane fires. Expect a lot of liberals to burn stuff. Dewis in Paris says, speaking of nukes, I heard deGrasse Tyson reassuring us that modern nukes don't cause radioactive fallout. Yes, they make a distinction between fusion and fission, and how one has fallout, one doesn't. So they're lowering your expectations. So if you buy a Geiger counter and you don't find any fallout, you decide you're going fishing or something. And that's kind of what they don't want you to be able to test for yourself. But if you do, because a lot of people will, maybe they want to kind of set the stage. Well, maybe you didn't detect it because it was this type of bomb. Like they want to have an out because it's not going to meet your expectations of a nuke. It's not going to do what they said. It won't be as dramatic. The EMP is the main thing. And EMP is one of the repeated themes. Like right now, I'm noticing the word empire. And we have Fallout, which is right out now on Amazon. But I'm noticing the word empire, like Ghostbusters, Frozen Empire, EMP, Godzilla versus King Kong. And Godzilla is a metaphor for the nuke. So again, that one's called the new empire. So the new empire is what is built from the ashes of what is burned down. Looking back at Westworld for predictive programming, Westeros burns, the red dragon burning Westeros, and the tagline is winter is coming. And as the dragons are burning Westeros, ashes are mixing with the snow. So the long winter has arrived. And I think that's nuclear winter and fallout being predicted. We've seen many examples of this. So EMP is the blackout, followed by fallout, which locks us all down. So that's what they're getting us ready for. But in case anybody tests it on their own, they're going to make it open to the possibility that maybe there wasn't. Maybe they did this other type of nuke, a little more environmentally friendly. Now, this is posted in our Discord server. So hot you can't breathe. Extreme heat hits the Philippines. I can't breathe. This is a theme. The I can't breathe has to do with the war on freedom, capitalism, on carbon superspreaders, on life. Now, what do we have here? Intelligence Chief Mike Burgess on the terrorism threat level in Australia and what constitutes a significant security risk at the moment. Quote, the threat level is possible, which means someone is planning or will conduct an act of terrorism. It will likely come from an individual or a small group who have a range of ideologies, including conspiracy theories. Everybody's saying this. Conspiracy theories are being specifically targeted as a source of radicalization. So, just a heads up, that's a theme that we're going to be hearing more and more of. Now, listen to this. Prime Minister Albanese says social media platforms have a responsibility to make sure that posts are factual. And he gives the following example of misinformation, quote, images of himself superimposed on other people's bodies. Oh, the horror. Let's listen to this.
Platforms have a responsibility to make sure that misinformation isn't got out there. I noticed today, for example, on the way up here, they've removed various sites that were up containing fake images of myself superimposed on other people. That's the sort of thing that is going on.
People are doing memes. They're putting other people's faces on other people's bodies. Something must be done. A shout out to Kevin Mooring, who can't breathe. He's coughing over there. I believe he was the one who found the article about the Philippines. Yeah, I can't breathe. Gaia can't breathe. Reoccurring theme. Memes kill. Mind viruses are literally killers. They can kill you. But anyway, this guy's complaining because people are taking the time to crop and drop him. He should be flattered, to be quite honest.
Social media has a responsibility to do the right thing here.
Anyway, do the right thing. So what about art? Like they're crossing some dangerous lines here. Like I once posited the notion that we should have the right to be wrong. Like, do I have to be right? Do I have to have the correct answers all the time? Can I just not have a podcast where for fun, for parody, we just purposefully go with the wrongest answers possible? No. Misinformation. Can't have people catching these mind viruses. And that's because they are, I think, trying to get rid of ridicule and humor itself because those are potent weapons against the establishment. Some people can't tell when you're joking anymore either. And that's because there's no bottom to how crazy things are getting. For example, there are people who believe that General Flynn is the Archangel Michael. And God-fearing patriot said, this is the kind of damage that's being done here. And citing this, other people are noticing, this is cognitive sabotage. It's totally damaging to people. We'll get to the bottom of it all eventually. Once people find out the origin story behind the JFK thing, I think it'll unravel. Okay, let me point this out. We've been talking about predictive programming. The day that JFK was assassinated, there were a few comments beforehand where they were describing, the news commentators were describing various assassinations in the past and the need to allow the Secret Service to do their job and to not go exposed into the public. Like they prepared us for it in advance. And I think that's a perfect example of predictive programming. That there's nothing mystical about it. It's all about sowing seeds and repeating ideas and putting things into the realm of possibility. Well, listen to this. And I'm sure this is just a coincidence. Director John Frankenheimer wrote in his autobiography that Kennedy and his family stayed with him at his estate in Malibu the night before he was shot. Now this is again director John Frankenheimer. He says, this is the guy who directed The Manchurian Candidate, which came out in 1962. Another example of predictive programming, Manchurian Candidate, and again 1962, the year before, 11/22/63, Kubrick's film Dr. Strangelove was actually debuting. But anyway, the candidate and his family stayed with Frankenheimer the night before the primary after a marathon of campaigning three major cities in California. He spent the rest of his day swimming and relaxing. Just what are the odds? Hanging out with a director about a movie that has to do with a presidential assassination. There's quite a lot of stuff about this Fallout, and we'll get more into it. We've been digging into the Batman Joker symbolism, finding quite a bit there. But looking into the Nolans, so we talk about Christopher Nolan and the Batman films and Oppenheimer and his brother Jonathan Nolan and this more recent Fallout. Well, check this out. There's another Nolan brother. Oppenheimer director Christopher Nolan's older brother was accused of being a hitman who murdered a U.S. financier in Costa Rica in 2005. And he was caught trying to escape Chicago jail after he faced extradition. But their older brother was a hitman with the nickname Oppenheimer. The very colorful life of Christopher Nolan's older brother. This is from the Daily Mail. A hitman named Oppenheimer. Just some more strangeness from this family, and predictive programming is kind of their thing. They're all insiders on this. Christopher Nolan's involvement in the PSYOP entertainment complex's productions go back to, I guess, Dark Knight Rising. And it is thick. These things are entangled, they're enmeshed. You can see there's a continuum in his movies from Batman to Oppenheimer, even connecting to his brother's movie, along with the real world news events. I mean, Dark Knight Rises has connections to Sandy Hook, Boston bombing. You have connections with the new Batman movie and the Boston bombers' death penalty being reinstated the date the movie is released. You have foreshadowing for all of the major psyops to follow. I mean, these are big in the meta script. These are movies that are telling the story of our times, painting the zeitgeist. Okay, let's continue here. Yeah, isn't tomorrow the anniversary of the Kent State thing? Because they're supposedly sending National Guard to various campuses. And we're looking at all kinds of hints about some upcoming psychological terror attack. So as much as I would like to just leave Q alone and just let it die, it's not going to. Alex Jones just platformed the son of WEF founder's friend. So in other words, Klaus Schwab's best friend has a son who went on InfoWars, and he has a total QAnon blowout. This guy goes on about how Elon Musk is dead, how Elon Musk has been replaced, and he's being fully platformed by Alex Jones.
Commander-in-Chief, my Commander-in-Chief, Donald J. Trump, said it March 2023. People should learn to listen to President Trump. He never lied. He always pulled it through. And he said, I will totally obliterate the deep state. Those were his words. Now, he said that already after it was done. It's not visible yet. Elon Musk is gone. Look at the dude. It's not Elon Musk anymore, isn't it? Look at Macron. This is not Macron. Look at the official pictures of the Elysee. It's not Macron anymore. They're gone because the US military and over 30 military forces without their leaders are under the control and command of the United States. And the US Space Force is the coordinating.
So you're saying this is like Q stuff. You're saying there's been a coup against the globalists?
Now, just to be clear, yeah, he is saying here that Elon Musk is dead, that Elon Musk has been replaced, and that, here we go, this is what...
Elon Musk anymore. It's not Elon Musk, he's gone. Elon Musk is fake news. Elon Musk told people we go to Mars. People, please think. Did you see that rocket ship, that piece of metal, with traditional so-called rocket fuel? You want to go on a 7-month voyage? It's all fake news. The moon landing was fake. We know it now, of course.
So this guy goes on to InfoWars to say that Elon Musk is dead. He's being executed and replaced. And the moon landing is fake news. Elon Musk is fake news. And it goes on and on and on. I watched the whole thing. This guy has credibility because he's the son of the BFF of Klaus Schwab, founder of the WEF. And so he's being described as a WEF whistleblower having a QAnon blowout. But yes, Elon Musk is dead. Just that's news to me. You heard it on InfoWars. Let's see, a couple days ago we were live for Glurf Day. We didn't have any Glurfs call in, but it's just saying Happy Glurf Day. I saw this meme. It's got a monkey eating a mask. It's got a duck wearing a mask. It's got a few of the birds with masks wrapped up in their legs, probably making it hard to survive. This is just a poignant statement about how shallow environmentalism really is. It's all just surface. It's all just grift for the Democrat Party. They don't have a monopoly on caring about nature. No, they just posture as this. I mean, they're like, the ocean levels are rising. You must restrict your freedoms. If the ocean levels have risen at all, it's about a millimeter from the 57 tons of PPE dumped in the oceans from 2020 to 2021. They should feel bad. If you're a Gaia worshiper, you should feel bad. Now, I don't, because I don't worship Gaia. I don't even believe in Gaia. I reject your God construct. I'm not even firmly convinced that the earth is an object separate from the quote universe that even needs to be saved. So we have a lot of work, to get me on board with that. Okay, do you all remember that story, getting back to Kennedy, about how Ted Cruz's father was distributing pamphlets with Lee Harvey Oswald? That story was cited by Donald Trump multiple times to discredit Ted Cruz. Now, Ted Cruz's father, I have a quote here. I mean, what he's doing with Lee Harvey Oswald before the shooting, Trump said in an interview with Fox News in 2016, it's horrible. So here's what happened. This is the truth. David Pecker, the publisher at the National Enquirer, testified on Tuesday the tabloid completely manufactured the story, and they published a photo showing Cruz's father, Rafael Cruz, with Lee Harvey Oswald handing out pro-Fidel Castro pamphlets in New Orleans in 1963. Now, this was all fake. National Enquirer made up the story. Now, why is this news? It's news because it's been admitted to be a fake. What they say here is, we mashed the photos together with a different picture with Lee Harvey Oswald. That's how the story was created, I would say. So a former publisher for the tabloid, David Pecker, reveals that they were influencing the election with a fake news story. I don't know if anybody really believed it. Going through your comments. Flatlander says, how were they able to find someone just as gross as Elon Musk to replace him? Good question. Joined by Thirst for Truth, the HBIC. Thank you for joining. Let's see. Linda Curtis says, leaks. Kevin Mooring says, summer break, out the riots. Yeah, it's riot season. It's getting warm. Yeah, what a name. David Pecker. This whole thing about Stormy Daniels, it's all just lurid sensationalism. I was looking at her tattoos. They were showing them off, and she has some like Lilith and witches and stuff all over her arms. Kevin says, what's funny is the guy in the Alex Jones video was a Q supporter, but Jones talked like Q was not real, and he said he knew him. Yeah, exactly. Alex Jones admitted multiple times that he knows Q, tried to hire Q. Jack Posevec knows him. We know who it is. It's going to break. The story's going to break soon. Now this is happening, and this is a right-wing thing. Right-wing Israeli groups are planning to sacrifice a red cow in hopes of fulfilling a Jewish prophecy. Now apparently if you kill red cows at this time, it will bring about calls for the demolition of a certain mosque, and then upon the ashes they will build the third temple. That's happening right now, and it's a right-wing thing, which is kind of interesting. Bunch of right-wingers sacrificing a cow for Armageddon.
Start Armageddon in the Middle East in April 2024? And what does this have to do with Israel's war on Palestine's Gaza? On the 100-day anniversary of Israel's brutal assault on Gaza, Hamas spokesman Abu Ubaidah released a video explaining the motivations behind the group's incursion into Israel on October 7th. Alongside Israel's continued occupation of Palestine, he also mentioned the bringing of red cows into the occupied Palestinian territory.
Now, these red cows are from Texas.
Ubaidah was referring to the plans of numerous right-wing Israeli groups who believe that a red cow must be sacrificed in order for the Jews to progress plans to demolish the Al-Aqsa.
Maybe this will be a prophecy that comes true. Maybe finally. The eclipse, nothing happened. Maybe for once it won't be nothing burgers for all the doom boofers. It'll be red cow burgers.
Mosque and build the fabled Third Temple in its place. It might sound like a conspiracy theory, but hardliner Israeli group the Temple Institute have already purchased and imported 5 red Angus heifers from Texas at a cost of $500,000. They have been grazing in a kibbutz in the occupied West Bank since 2022.
All right, so there we have it. They're going to be killing these cows soon, and Armageddon should start, hopefully. Hopefully. And then I can just put all this stuff behind us. Let's just get it over with. But again, right-wing Jews are planning to kill some cows. All right, continuing. I'm going through my minds.com/infinite-plane society. The government is willing to do whatever is necessary to take on the arrogant billionaire who thinks he's above the law, says the e-safety commissioner. You remember I've been calling this the safe space age. How they started with safe spaces on college campuses for leftists to be protected from right-wing opinion. Then we had social distancing, which was safe space type. It was like a safe space situation, but it was for physical, viruses, real viruses that could kill you, so you have to have your space. Later they found that the misinformation was causing people not to take the cure, which now meant that your safe space, your social distancing, was now a matter of life and death. You got to be protected from their mind viruses and what they're physically carrying. Well, now they've moved it forward to where now your mind viruses are as dangerous as real viruses because of their consequences, whether it's radicalism, whether it's turning you into a mass shooter, or making you into a super spreader, or causing you to be a climate change non-believer so you become a carbon super spreader. So this is a reoccurring theme here, getting us used to the idea that we need to enter into a safe space age in our cyberspace. And it's not a coincidence that Elon Musk is the leading promulgator of mind junk and space junk. They have the richest man in the world to set an example, to be a fall guy. If we let one individual get too rich, look what he can do. He can dominate space. And his CubeSats could actually screw it up, and we might be landlocked for a few generations. We let him dominate cyberspace, and because of his influence, we have all these bad things happening. Disease X is being released into the world. So they're making an example about rich people, about the rich, powerful types like Musk and the influence that they wield. This was a huge subtext in the movie Don't Look Up, where the rich people killed us all out of their greed. So this is all by design, but listen to what the e-safety commissioner is saying about Elon Musk.
How far is the government willing to go, and looking at new powers, how far is it willing to go to take on Elon Musk, who really has hit back on the social media platform again overnight?
We'll do what's necessary to take on this arrogant billionaire who thinks he's above the law, but also above common decency. What the e-safety commissioner is doing is doing her job to protect the interests of Australians. And the idea that someone would go to court for the right to put up violent content on a platform.
Now, they're talking about one of the stabby videos and Musk protecting the ability of the video to be put online. Very similar to the conversation we had after the fake Christchurch shooting with Brent and Tarrant, where they were supposedly arresting people or charging people with crimes for having it on their hard drive. And they didn't want people to see it because it's so horrific, it's so inflammatory. No, it's so fake. If you looked at it closely with any level of critical thinking, you would say, oh, okay, that's pixelated, that's fake, that's AVR.
shows how out of touch Mr. Musk is. Social media needs to have social responsibility with it. Mr. Musk is not showing any.
There you have it. Again, this is by design. Elon Musk, Disease X, mind junk, space junk, too much power in one person. Something must be done. Fall Guy for private space and Fall Guy for free speech. And that's because, of course, these represent commons, outer space, cyberspace. That's what they're conveying here with this multi-layered story. Penguin-geddon, says Nick the NASA pimp. Ryler05 says the elite and their word magic. Words are spells. Agreed. Joined by Symbia with the penguin, the waving blue penguin. Let's see what else here. Erica Creech says this is a good prediction. He might not fall, though. Well, Tesla stocks are. And in that movie, Leave the World Behind, the Tesla cars are all hijacked by the AI or the EMP or whatever it does, causes them to somehow malfunction. And then he has 1.6 million of his vehicles recalled. And I mean, the story here with Elon Musk is that he's a bad example. Too much freedom. We need a poster child for what happens if one person has too much freedom and too much power relative to the masses. Can we let one person ruin it for everybody? And the answer is obviously no. But they're trying to do this thing where they create the perception of a problem so we clamor for a solution. This is from SBS News. This isn't about freedom of expression. It's about the dangerous implications that can occur when things are simply not true, are replicated and weaponized in order to cause division. They're talking about Musk, and Tanya Plibersek calls him a, quote, egotistical billionaire, a narcissistic cowboy, and that X has a ridiculous and preposterous argument that removing imagery of a terrorist attack should be left online. Yet the people who advocate for free speech absolutism are kind of missing the point. You know, free speech isn't a loss of standards, you know, and it's really about the government having its influence out of the realm of ideas and not being able to get in the way of what you say. But they're getting people used to the idea that we need a safe space, a mental safe space. Our cyberspace has to be safe because we can't critically think or we can't protect ourselves from bad ideas. In other words, they're kind of making it look like we don't have mental immune systems and need to be protected from destructive mind viruses, which is the premise of Hot Skulls. If you haven't seen Hot Skull, it's kind of about us. It's about a society where people are susceptible to mind viruses, and so the government tells them wear earplugs. And if you see somebody without their ears covered, don't listen to them because your mind will catch fire. You'll have the hot skull syndrome. So here we are, hot skulls, talking, spreading ideas that they would rather not have spread. And the movie is pretty spot on in terms of how they're looking at ideas. But what they're not mentioning here is that they have created the situation. As in the mass media, the institutions of education, they have created the situation where people trust the screen as though it's an authority, not exercising any kind of mental immune system. That's why I say they have mind aids. You give the public mind aids, and it's okay as long as the viruses they're given are from the state. They just don't want competition. In other words, they've been rendered so credulous they'll believe anything. So they don't want them to accidentally wind up believing the truth. So they're trying to filter out the truth. That's the real meaning behind all of this. So Musk is there not to save free speech, but to help them establish the predicate for shutting it down. That way we can't get in there. Let's see what else we have here. Going through myminds.com / Infinite Plane Society. Ben Shapiro on the warpath to purge conspiratorial cranks from the right. So he makes some interesting points. I'm talking about Ben Shapiro. And you'll find this sometimes. Like there were times where Rush Limbaugh made sense. as the mayor of Realville, where he reads a story about how there's water discovered on Mars, and he's like, it's more likely this is just a ploy by the left to get more money for for projects, basically under the premise that there's water on Mars, we may go there. So he considered NASA to largely be part of the environmentalist movement, creating this slush fund based on pure fantasy. And he would say these things maybe facetiously, maybe not knowing how right he was. But sometimes you can find some common sense analysis, but they don't go too far. They're still in their box. But Shapiro's been spending time deconstructing the Tucker Carlson appearance on the Joe Rogan Experience. And he says, quote, just asking questions doesn't make you a critical thinker, argued Shapiro, who posited that rampant conspiracy theorizing about 9/11 aliens and more is little more than a business strategy, which I agree with. It's a business strategy, but it's also target marketing ideas uh, in order to maintain this info war, left and right. But just asking questions. And he follows it up by there's no good faith effort to answer the questions they raise. And I find this a lot. Acting baffled. Like, what is that? What are they spraying? It's like there's a difference between rejecting the mainstream and automatically going with anything that opposes it and arriving at truth. And what he's criticizing here is what I would call the anti-antis. I'm sorry, the anti to the pro. Whereas I'm saying, yeah, I mean, he's kind of taking this anti-anti position. That the knee-jerk position of I'll go with anything that's not mainstream is not exactly the same thing as truth. But he spent quite a lot of time on it, and I think he's mostly on target. But of course, Shapiro and others are in the box, and there's no way they could arrive at the uh, full depth of the fakery. The Secret Sun Speaks has a pretty decent blog post about the Burning Man, and I think he's even mentioning May Day, so I'll be digging into this. In fact, I'm going to record a podcast, I believe, with Armin Ree again. I want to discuss Beltane. I want to discuss May Day before the first. But anyway, the Secret Sun Speaks wrote this. Max Azarello ritually sacrificed himself outside the courthouse, where Trump's Stormy Daniel trial is being held. Did he know that Friday is the final day of Cerilia, an ancient festival noted for ritual burnings? Did he know he committed this act not 20 feet away from the spot where an idol of Medusa once stood? Goes on to say, does he know that Stormy Daniel is dedicated to the ancient succubus Lilith, the bride of Satan? Strange times. So he has an article here called The Bride of Satan and the Cerilia Killer. Or it sounds like serial killer. Serial, then IA. So this is a immolation, a ritual immolation according to him. I find his analysis on this to be really interesting. However, I don't believe that the person really died. I don't think that's the case at all. But I often find that those who are covering these things, whatever their conclusions, they do end up coming up with a lot of interesting connections that are worth considering. And one of the things he talks about is mystical toponymy, which was something, I think it was first, this phrase was coined by James Shelby Downard, who wrote King Kill 33 about the script beneath the JFK assassination. And what this refers to is the names of the places where these events take place, how their geographical locations and the names of the streets are all part of the ritual set. And so he's broken down this entire movie set, the location, and in this bigger context, I think he may have made the case here that this is coordinated with the burning of human beings or effigies in fires associated with some kind of pagan rites. And he cites here from Sir James Fraser's Golden Bow, pretty good book, where he talks about, quote, again, we have seen serpents and foxes used to be burnt in the midsummer's fires, and Welsh and German witches are reported to have assumed the forms of foxes and serpents. But it's Celtic human sacrifice rituals. That's what he's referencing. And now we can tie this to the Waco siege, because it happens on the anniversary of the Waco siege, where you had 33-year-old Dave Koresh, who believed he was Jesus, ritually incinerated. This is on the 31st anniversary of the sacrificial immolation of Waco. And then it was the 29th anniversary of the Oklahoma City bombing, where 168 were killed, many of them children. Interestingly, Special Agent Paul Weisapal from the FBI, who strongly resembles Timothy McVeigh, is credited with having rescued 168 children from trafficking. So, as Timothy McVeigh, he killed 168. As an FBI agent, he rescued 168. Anyway, McVeigh also was not immolated, but electrocuted to death at the age of 33. Another connection, maybe looser, but Maxwell came from St. Augustine. So he goes from St. Augustine to this place where he burns, but I'm like, wait, St. Augustine was burned by Sir Francis Drake. So you have Drake, Dragon, the burning, which may correlate to the Copenhagen spire that burned, and they call it the Dragon's Tail. Now, one reason that may be significant is that it's the oldest stock exchange, and this guy's entire manifesto is about the rich and the powerful and this coming economic collapse. So there's that. In Cerealia, there was an ancient holiday dedicated to mass immolation, the ancient Roman goddess of agriculture, the feast of Ceres. Fascinating. Now, he's gone deep into the location and the statue of Medusa, and interestingly enough, the statue of Medusa, where she's holding a sword and carrying something, he's compared it to the image of Kathy Griffin holding the head of Donald Trump. And again, this is right outside the courthouse, so he may be onto something with this. And then he connects Stormy Daniels into the story, and she does have some strange tattoos, which may connect her to the Whore of Babylon. There's quite a lot here. Quite a lot here. And it gets deep when you get into the storm is coming, Stormy Daniels, the first arrest will shock the world, Q drop number 55. He gets arrested on the 55th anniversary of MLK's assassination. We dug into this, but it's definitely the case that these are not coincidental connections. It's part of this script. And by the way, nobody died, nobody cried, nobody got hurt. The actor who portrayed the Burning Man, Maxwell, was protected by a granulate powder that mixes with gel that's used to protect exposed skin against open flame. This is from stunt360.com. Look up Zell Gel. Look up Zell Gel and you'll understand that it's entirely within the realm of fakeability. Naked burn gel. We were discussing this the other day. Let me catch up on some comments. Kevin Mooring says we're entering George Floyd month, so heads up, folks. Duas Impera says when they wheeled Peterson and Shapiro out on the world stage 10 years ago, they made a lot of sense, collected followers, then they went to the dark side and took their followers with them. Ted Stryker, any word on why JL did not call? I'll reach out to him again, especially as we get closer to 6/11. Duas Impera says paganism, human sacrifice, cannibalism were the themes of the Amazon series Yellow Jackets. Okay, there's a lot of cannibalism here. Joker, kill the rich. This Burning Man with his shirt, eat the rich, and then he burns himself next to a hot dog stand. And this is against the backdrop of Haiti and the barbecue. And then Russia, their satanic cannibal. There's quite a lot of cannibalism going on right now. And there has been for a few days, actually. Okay, so we're talking about Maxwell Asrello, the man who set himself on fire after throwing conspiracy pamphlets. Kevin Mooring says, Tim, did you see the bars in Ukraine? Bars are busy opening during the war. Yes, yes. There's an anagram for that movie Leave the World Behind. Behold the End War Live. And the movie ends where Rose gets into the bunker and she's watching Friends on TV. as the world gets destroyed up above. And I think that's really the case here, that the war is in our minds. It's on your minds, it's in your minds, and you wouldn't know if you didn't compare the world with the world stage. People confuse the map with the territory by design. People are immersed in it. All right, let's continue. Covering the last few days of notes. We're waiting for the red cow sacrifice. Hopefully they'll get some results. I was talking about JFK a little. Predictive programming leading to the JFK assassination. And check this out. This is an example of JFK worship. Just so you know, I'm not exaggerating. JFK, your words hold the truth of heaven itself. Why is it that humankind, the elite, elevate themselves and yet deaf to what is so important? God has blessed you, JFK, with common sense messages to the world. Thank you. This is in all caps. All caps is usually an indicator that somebody has crossed a line, where now they're yelling everything. But yeah, there are people on Twitter praying to John F. Kennedy as some kind of a savior. Illusion Warfare says, Tim Osman came up with the term, quote, truth or wall of shame. Let's be honest, the Great Wall of China wouldn't be big enough to accommodate the amount of pictures that need to be hung on it. Yes, because Alex Jones posted this. Medical whistleblower. Basically talking about the needles and how it's genociding everybody. And my comment to Les Luthor was, truthers think crisis actors only exist on left-wing issues. And that is just exactly the truth.
We're the ones, they called it sepsis, but it was
and I can't even play her misinformation without getting banned. But this is theater. This is a crisis actor. And it's just interesting how they're not fooled by crisis actors on the left, but they're fooled by crisis actors on their own side. As far as the, quote, chaos on college campuses, Mike Johnson was talking about putting order in the chaos. So if you caught that, order in the chaos, order out of chaos, this is all code. But there are these pro-Palestine protests that are happening in Columbia, Harvard, USC, University of Texas at Austin, being swarmed by protesters. It's happening everywhere. Most of the protesters don't know why they're there. It's that time of the year, I guess. But this is a story that is probably going to be the backdrop against which we're going to have some kind of a major psyop, and then they start burning stuff. So the Beltane fires are likely to come from this end. Interestingly, last year we were talking about White Noise, the Netflix movie, and the derailment in East Palestine and the toxic airborne event, which is the theme of the movie White Noise. And I was suggesting that the derailment in East Palestine, Ohio, was foreshadowing for some kind of a toxic airborne event or a nuke in Palestine. And I'm thinking we're getting very close to that. Ohio is the heart of it all. And you look at Israel, the heart of a nation, there's a parallel here where I think we've been given plenty of predictive programming, but things are heating up, and it's right there in the college campuses, so just a heads up there. Here's Mike Johnson calling on the president of Columbia University to resign if she can't, quote, bring order from the chaos. This is a 33-second clip from C-SPAN.
Today, I am here today joining my colleagues and calling on President Shafiq to resign if she cannot immediately bring order to this chaos. As Speaker of the House, I am committing today that the Congress will not be silent as Jewish students are expected to run for their lives and stay home from their classes hiding in fear.
All right, there's Mike Johnson, who believes that Noah's Ark was real and had dinosaurs, but has yet to explain where the dinosaurs went. Here it is, University of Southern California popping off. And mainly what you have are the police are out there, and then you have the histrionic protesters wailing. I don't have any sympathy for people who just yell and chant and proclaim the moral high ground. I really don't. Like I'm not it's not that I side with the police, but like I don't really care when someone gets, nullified when they're acting like that. We can be civilized. Well, we can. Like if you're on either side, you're already playing a losing game. Proud Boy, Soy Boy. The Soy Boys versus the Proud Boys, both competing for government power, for approval of daddy government. Now there are these bloody horses running around. You may have seen that. Apocalyptic symbolism. I'm sorry, yeah, Joe Biden. Joe Biden here talking about 4 more years, and I don't know. I'm leaning towards Kamala Harris. He's reading the entire teleprompted messaging here, where he says, 4 more years. Pause.
Imagine what we can do next. 4 more years. Pause.
4 more years. Pause. Nothing new there. Roseanne Barr. Now, Roseanne Barr dresses up the like Trump's rape accuser, who accused him of assaulting her in a dressing room. So she dresses up like Trump's accuser and films a video where she's claiming that Joe Biden abused her at a dressing room at Bergdorf's. This is QAnoner and American QAnon queen, Roseanne Barr.
What happened, Mom? We're at Bergdorf. Are you okay? You look very sore.
No, I'm not okay because I just had a horrible flashback, a horrible memory. Right now, I realize that 26 years ago, Joe Biden raped me right here in that dressing room in the shoe department where I went in to change.
Now, some people in the comments think it's funny. I think it's low, but it's really no different than Ryan Garcia's Me Too moment about Bohemian Grove, which he did for the clicks. Nobody knew who he was, and now he cashes out millions and millions of dollars. Private bets, getting paid. I think he's $50 million richer after that fight, and nobody would have watched it if he didn't make up stories about Joe Biden and others assaulting him at Bohemian Grove or whatever he was saying. And they just say these things with no care in the world for truth. They're just like clicks over truth. Another comedian actor, says Kevin Mooring. Yes, I put a link there for press passes. And anyway, Roseanne Barr is saying that. Yeah, it's beyond the pale. And even 20 years ago, I think she would have been a little old for him. Yeah, riots are picking up. So if you want a press pass, click that link. You can get the IPS Infinite Plane Radio Reporter press passes. These are durable, won't fade, won't tear, lanyard, retractable. They're on the front. It has the Infinite Plane Radio logo and it says press. It says photographer and journalist for Infinite Plane Radio. And on the back, it has a QR code and our phone number. So again, if you want to get these press passes, I'm going to be making an effort to issue out a lot of these as the summer heats up, as we get closer to the election. I have one myself, and I have a few of them here in the office, so I can ship them out right away. In fact, I'm going to see if they do glow in the dark. I think they have that as an option. But this is a new design. You may like it. It's updated information, and the QR code makes it really easy to send people to our sites. Yes, Dinah South, be unlockdownable. You're considered to be essential if you're media. And that's the reason we started this thing. Okay, we already talked about the WEF whistleblower saying that Elon Musk is dead. I love how Alex Jones is like listening to it, a little incredulous, but doesn't really push back. And again, doesn't admit that he knows who Q is. And this whole thing just created a hotbed for cult leaders to arise. This is a cult leader, negative 48. And he is using gematria to make the case that JFK is coming back to save us. And this was a day before JFK was supposed to show up at the grassy knoll where he was killed. But I want you to listen for about 30 seconds. This is someone in full-blown cult leader mode. And everyone around with their MAGA shirts are just like sheep, just listening, lapping it up.
Woo! Love you, Michael. Love you. Quiet, quiet. No, no.
He never quits 163. Double-edged sword 163. One side's truth 87. The other side's justice 87. 87, 87, 174. Trust the plan 174. One time server Jesus 74.
Now he's spouting phrases and their numerical value. JFK, you'll find out 174. JFK saved the day 174. And the sheep around him find this as evidence that what he's saying has internal cohesion. And this is basically God speaking through the guy.
Yes, sir. Glory to God.
Yes.
That's how they call it. Trying 77. Huh?
Now, I figured this out. I've cracked the code. This is called the Texas sharpshooter fallacy. What you do is you find 10 or 15 or 20 of these phrases that all line up, and then you ignore the infinite number that don't. And then you only point to the ones that add up to what you want, and then it sounds like, hey, this guy is onto something. You could find, if you wanted to, many more that would contradict what he's asserting here. It's called the Texas sharpshooter fallacy, and it's based on this story of this Texas man firing off all his rounds at the side of a barn, and then after the fact, he paints a target around the closest group. And he's like, look at me, I'm a sharpshooter. That's what this guy has done. That's what all of these gematria types are doing. They're all applying the Texas sharpshooter fallacy. That's why I don't do this gematria. I don't really get involved with it. I'm interested in pattern recognition. I'm interested in various narrative threads, themes, the way they paint the zeitgeist on the world stage through the media, through this immersive illusion. But I'm not adding things together and making bold claims about what they mean as though these numbers and letters have intrinsic value that you can discern. It's like, does the number 74 mean Jesus? Well, it adds to that, but so does Lucifer. So how do you reconcile these opposites that have the same numerical value? Do you then say, oh, therefore Jesus is Lucifer? At some point, it becomes so contradictory that it's just idiotic. Let me play a few more seconds.
The military came up behind him. And they took their power and they turned around and they left.
What he's preaching here is that the military is in control. Another one of these victims of this psychological operation, goes by JFK Fan, is convinced that Frank Sinatra is playing the role of the Pope. Yes, Frank Sinatra is playing the role of the Pope. Does this make sense? No, it does not. And then others say, no, the Pope is being played by Jonathan Pryce. So they come to agree that Jonathan Pryce is being played by Frank Sinatra, who plays the Pope when he's not rescuing abused children from underground sex dungeons below Domino's Pizza. This is just pure madness. Now, I'm pointing out the origins of it with George News and this whole magazine pretending to be JFK Jr. brought back to life. But this is what made it real. This is what made the hyperstition real, where JFK was brought back to life. RFK Jr., before he was running for anything, was on a podcast, and someone asked him, if JFK Jr. is alive, touch your nose. So he smiles at the screen and he touches his nose. That gesture created this mess.
Documents that are not in the public domain. And the Deitch memo is one of those documents. It was a discovery document that was given to me by Mike Hugo, one of the original lawyers in vaccine injury litigation, who could not, they would settle before they got to a jury. And they had to do that because
so
they...
You can see him typing in the comments, touch your nose, and RFK touches his nose very obviously, and this again is confirmation.
They could not have.
There was a Q&A recently where somebody asked General Flynn, is JFK Jr. still alive? And General Flynn smiles big and everybody claps and laughs. And then he says, well, he's not at Mar-a-Lago.
Okay, next, sir.
To your knowledge, is John F. Kennedy Jr. alive?
No, listen.
So you hear these people laughing and clapping like seals at the question, is JFK Jr. still alive? Does anyone here, just recognize how absurd this is? Like from a normie perspective, this is an absurd thing to be asking. But if you're an insider to the whole Q lore, Q is JFK and JFK Jr. And Flynn would know because he's part of it.
I just want to...
And they're smiling about it, and he just kind of dismissively says, no, he's not at Mar-a-Lago.
Like a Lawmeyer town hall.
Amen. Okay, sir, you want to punt? You want to answer? What do you want to do?
He's not at Mar-a-Lago.
All right. A little inside cult humor. Now I'm moving. I would love to move away from this. I would like to just have it all in the past, but there's been a huge resurgence of it, and so I decided to kind of draw attention to it. We're looking at some kind of active measure operation. I think the intention of it is to utterly discredit, but also cognitive impairment. There's some who believe that Michael Prosman, -48, is actually Kevin McCarthy. Everybody's everybody in this world. And there are no wrong answers. You can make up your own. It's like do-it-yourself fan fiction, erotomania, and they're all in on it, making up their own religion as they go. All right, let's continue. We talked about fake pandas already. We talked about low information belief. That was yesterday. I've been scouring Maxwell Azarello's site to see what else, and yeah, this is a straw man. They burned a straw man. They created a straw man to take down conspiracy theorists in particular, to discredit conspiracy theorists who notice patterns and predictive programming. Now, this is interesting. Ye is now starting his own adult movie company, a porn company, which is kind of strange considering he went from becoming Jesus to now doing porn. It's like he's going in reverse. And his license plate was photographed. 666. No chance that's a coincidence. I don't know what it means, but all right, let's see here. Kevin Mooring says Jim Morrison and Rush Limbaugh had golden microphones. Yeah, Limbaugh stepped off the world stage after 33 years at EIB, just before the insurrection thing really became a big story. It was still the dust was still settling. But he stepped out right on time. And the resemblance is there, even with the wives. Turbo Nurbo says Richard Pryor is Steve Harvey. Kevin Mooring says Morgan Freeman and Jimi Hendrix. I've seen a lot of these 27 clubbers, and some have said that Amy Goodman was one of the 27 clubbers. There was a few examples. Let's see here. Now, you know who else came back from the 27 Club? Janis Joplin, Amy Goodman. Apparently, it is believed by some that Rivers Cuomo is Kurt Cobain. Dewis in Paris says, most of my normie friends have never heard of Q, which I find strange. Yeah, I can understand that. Normieville is asleep. And that's why truthers are always, quote, red pilling them. Because the Normieville is satisfied with the version they're given. One way I describe it is humanity is collectively filtered through a giant screen, this monolith that we have bonded with, we've merged with. And the mainstream view is nose to the screen. So you still have the real world at your periphery. It's there behind the screen, but it's filtered through it. And everything on the screen is true. Anything extra is conspiracy theory, not worth paying attention to. The people who notice that the screen is lying look for more information. But instead of backing away from the screen and looking outside of it, they go through the screen into what I call MSM plus. So their head is inside the matrix, looking for deeper answers. And there they find about Q and deep state and adrenochrome and frazzle drip and child trafficking and JFK Jr. and the deep state. They go in deeper for a more satisfying explanation, and it's meant to quell their curiosity, to stop them from asking questions. So now you have this group of people who have a bunch of wrong answers, but at least they're not asking questions anymore, and they've been nullified. They're no longer a threat. They're no longer in any way a threat to the world stage paradigm, because now they're actively participating in propagating it. So the mainstream propagates the worldview, and those who don't want that go into MSM plus. Will they propagate the alternate version of it, or the deeper version of it? And the deeper version is just scarier. It's like, yeah, all this is true, but you can add this, this, and that. Now your cirrus clouds are toxic, for example. Now the Democrats are literal cannibals. So you have a nightmare version. And the people in the nightmare version are constantly trying to sell the normies on it. They're trying to wake them up. Hey, if you're not angry, you're not paying attention. That kind of thing. Of course, if you lean left, you go woke. You get your deeper explanation in Woke Town. Dewis and Paris says, I kind of thought they'd wheel Q through Normiville to discredit rational conspiracy theorists. Well, they have, because Q is such a huge umbrella, and what it did is it steered people into accepting a repackaged version of older conspiracy theories. It's entirely, though, an operation meant to discredit. It was never revealing truth. In fact, we witnessed it firsthand, how a lot of people who were understanding and processing the news media accurately and recognizing, okay, fake until proven real, this is all fake. Suddenly they're like, no, Q says Vegas was real. The deep state did it to harm Trump's reputation. Space Force is real, therefore NASA's not lying. We do live on a big ball. You see, so they do damage control against the conspiracies that are a threat to the world stage as constructed. And at the same time, it politicized them. Conscious Daughter CD says, why are 40-year-old rappers battling each other with rap disses Eminem, Drake, and Kendrick? Yeah, I saw that. I couldn't believe it. I'm like, wait, Drake is dissing Rick Ross's mansion as a YouTube influencer's mansion, not as big as his mansion. I'm like, what? This is just way outside of my purview. I cannot relate. It's also very emotional, arrested development to be so status conscious. I think it's just more of this dumbing down of the culture, getting us focused on low vibration, materialistic things, cutting off your intuition, cutting off your sense of integration with the past. They don't want you to have pattern recognition or to have a sense of history outside of their box. They keep you in the now. That's one of the main reasons for the doomsday. It truncates the future because the world's going to end next week after they kill the red cow, so why bother? And they get you focused on the immediate now in the attention economy. And making the future scary makes it that much more attractive to not care about it, to not look at it, to have your back to it. Commenter says, if you're standing on a scale in a stationary elevator and the elevator starts to move up, your weight increases. Is this proof or evidence that the Earth is moving up? No. No, I don't believe that it would be. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not even convinced that there is an Earth. I'm sorry. Like, look, I'm really certain actually, because of my own experiences, but I can't tell you that this is true. But my own experiences suggest to me that synchronicity, intuition, is outside, or it comes from a place outside of our five sense reality, that it's outside of time space, that our entire being exists on a spectrum from a very dense meat suit to a more ethereal, spiritual, whatever you want to call it, transcendent side, that we are light encased in matter for a period of time as we move through this. And My experience with synchronicity suggests that there's some kind of feedback loop here, that God or the universe is reflecting messaging back to us in response to what we put out. I liken it to echolocation. Bats moving through the dark, sending signals, navigating by the feedback that they get back, but they can't see what's ahead. Well, we can't see what's ahead of us because we're constrained to our 5 sense box and the time space. But we are, in a sense, able to glean information about the future through synchronicity, intuition, through precognition, things that shouldn't exist, that don't exist in the modern paradigm. These things suggest to me that our modern model is fake and wrong. Nothing to do with the shape or NASA, but this alone, the existence of meaningful synchronicity. And you can't just chalk it off to apophenia, wishful thinking, self-fulfilling prophecy. There's another level to it. So given that, I don't think the universe exists until it's experienced. Like I don't think it's a static thing, like balls in this big abyss that are falling and everything's going to eventually collapse and the universe is going to fold on itself like a big taco and we're all dead. Like, no, I don't think that's the case. I don't think we're just egotistical, evolved apes on balls of matter floating around. I don't think it exists until we experience it. And therefore, I don't even think the Earth exists as a discrete object floating somewhere. Like this idea of the Earth as an object is one of the loaded kind of concepts they put out there. Like if you immediately conceive of it as an object in space, it sets you up for all kinds of other things that would reasonably follow from that. And I just disagree with that. So I'm kind of an Earth denialist. I deny Earth. I'm not just denying climate change. I'm denying that the Earth exists as a discrete object. Like maybe the universe exists as we experience it as a plane. Maybe it goes on forever. I don't know, but we'll continue through the comments. Elephant Tusk says the true reality is when you focus entirely on who you really are and stop looking and focusing any attention on the world stage. Fascinating. Well, I don't believe in tuning out. I think we have to be informed. So that the masses are misinformed. They live in a malformed world. They are misinformed by design. Now, if you just tune out, you'll be under misinformed. Being under misinformed is not a position of power. It's a position of vulnerability because now when the masses of misinformed are triggered, you're going to march along behind them because you don't have the information to see through whatever's triggering them. So I don't think there's any use in being under misinformed. You should be informed about the misinformation. So the three groups are the masses of misinformed who are paying attention, who are engrossed in it, and then you have the under misinformed who aren't paying attention, who are more like escapists, and they're not able to arrive at the truth because they're not informed. You have to reverse engineer the lies to see through them. You can't just ignore the lies. So the way I see it, our goal should be to have informed agnosticism, informed non-belief. I've been making this distinction lately that there's a qualitative difference between low information non-believers and informed non-believers. Low information non-believers will disbelieve in koala bears for no reason. That's absurd. If I'm going to say something's fake, it's because of reasons. It's not because of some knee-jerk response to everything on the news. Like you can't just say everything's fake. That's prejudiced. You can suspend judgment and maybe you find out that, yeah, 90% of it's fake, but everything's fake is a generalization. That's not how we operate. Elephant Tusk says, synchronicity is just your higher self guiding you. I think so too. You know, people externalize it. Oh, it's God, it's a spirit. Yeah, whatever you want to call it. I think it's more like our consciousness exists on a spectrum, and what we experience as our I, as our ego, is that which is compatible with the meat suit, but that it's not our entire self, that our entire self is much more expansive and encapsulates a wider range of experience, and that the rest of it is that which you experience when you've elevated yourself above the mere material survival and its needs. And like him or not, David Icke has a lot of interesting things to say about what he calls the reptilians, where he describes that, maybe as a metaphor, if you live only for terrestrial survival, for acquiring territory, for domination, you are pretty much a reptile. And the reptilian, or the lower chakra level of consciousness, is really rooted, the root chakra. It's the lower aspect of our range, and it's fight or flight. It's fight, mate, and kill. And that's where they keep you if you're in a constant state of fear and dread about the other tribe, the other group, weapons of mass destruction, the sky falling, cirrus clouds. Oh yeah, chemtrails. That stuff. These aren't harmless conspiracy theories. They're harmful to the believers. These are harmful beliefs that keep you locked in a low vibe. Creates antagonisms. It's the perpetual war in your mind that they insert there. Dewis in Paris says, "Is Jake the a-hole a dome earther?" I can't quite. Oh yeah, he's not a ball earther. I've never heard him say infinite plane. I've never heard him specifically say dome. It's a good question. Is he a domer? I doubt it. I doubt it. The domer is mostly a biblical proposition. Elephant Tusk says, most people are not connected to the higher self. Oh, yeah, I would contend they're trained not to be. I would suggest that they are deliberately trained to ignore it, to laugh at it, to laugh at intuition. And I've had intuitive bits of knowledge, information my entire life. And I would bring stuff up at various times and it would largely be ignored. But in 2015, I followed my intuition despite people suggesting that I had ulterior motives to what I was suggesting about somebody. Turns out I was 100% right. And after that, I realized my intuition has not only kept me out of trouble, but it's put me in places to be of use to innocent people or to prevent bad situations. So it occurred to me that I'm going to trust it implicitly from here on out. And when I made the conscious decision to take my own intuition into account with any decision that I make, the communication seemed to become even clearer. And that's why I describe it as echolocation. I can't see what's ahead, but my communication, the feedback loop, this echolocation, is serving to guide me in some way through the darkness. Mango Penguin says, let's have a shroom session, Tim. Shrooms live, that'd be terrible. I don't know if I could do this. It would be very distracting. Linda Curtis says, Earth as an object is another idol. Agreed. The ball Earth is an idol. It's idol worship. It's a God construct. Kevin Mooring says, fear equals controlled. Oh yeah, I'm not at all controlled by any of their hyperstitions or superstitions. Like, there are people who live in dread of nukes and weapons of mass destruction. And here, look, we are unperturbed. Is anybody here triggered by any of the news? If you've read Autohoaxology 101, and you can get it at the main website, I open it up with a discussion about Pyrrho, the original skeptics, and about the need to suspend judgment. That the suspension of judgment is at the heart of skepticism. Like, why give an F about something that you don't know to be true? Because you'll end up piling on to into your mind all kinds of things, all kinds of superstitious dread and fear and who knows, just all these phobias that you don't need. It's the opposite of peace of mind. Truthers are not selling you peace of mind. They're selling you war, internal war. But anyway, in the book, I describe how the original skeptics were aiming for what they called ataraxia, calmness, an untroubled mind, quiescence. So this is essentially an ideal mental state. And what's more, it was even suggested that this state of mind would be ideal for soldiers entering battle. So even if the sky is falling, even if the New World Order is coming, you're better off being calm than freaking out. Because I get these truthers who are like, you're too calm, you're not worried, you're not freaking out. It's like, you know what, even if there was reason to freak out, I'm not going to be the one freaking out in the room because I'm informed. So, according to Piro, ataraxia is the state that you arrive at as a result of the suspension of judgment in all matters of dogma and non-evident belief. So all these things that you don't know to be true, but you choose to believe them, that make your world scarier, take you away from this peace of mind. I believe that one of the best songs that describes the state of mind is actually Auto Hoax by Chief Crow. And auto hoax does mean to suspend judgment as to whether you believe something to be real or not. And the song is very chill, very calm, and it's perfectly describing the state of mind one achieves when they unplug from the fear matrix. And truthers will act like, oh, you're not being serious, you have a false sense of security, the sky's falling and everything's about to go down and you're just kicking back. And it's like, yeah, I'm not going to get out of I'm not going to freak out. All right, let's see here. Dewis and Paris says Owen Benjamin could handle Joey Diaz shrooms. Didn't Alex Jones shroom with Mike Tyson? And Mike Tyson is selling Evander Holyfield ears, gummy ears with THC. Yep, drug-laced gummies shaped like an ear he bit off. Kevin Mooring says Project Blue Balls is a phrase by Chalk Body Outline. It means truthers waiting for the next 9/11. Yeah, that was a thing. I understand the phrase. What he's talking about is a lot of them, I call them doom boofers. They want everything to collapse so they can say, I told you so. They want some crescendo, a culmination. They want vindication. And it never comes. It never happens. Never arrives. To the point where now they're just so desperate for it, they'll probably kill some red cows to make it happen. Like, please, let's just kill some red cows, do whatever it takes. Let's have our Armageddon already. All right, let's see what else. Going through my minds.com/infinite plane society. And by the way, I'm working on a few projects. We are working on a documentary for the doxing of Q, and I have 2 cinematographers I'm speaking with. Not sure which one I'm going to hire for this particular job. So anything you do to support the channel, if you buy press passes, you buy the book, you sign up, it's all going to these projects, and I'm hiring someone probably in about a week. And so I've been writing my script and outlining the project because I think this is something that needs to come out before my trial date, May 13th. Yep, May 13th, I will be in Redwood City, California. It's myself versus Google LLC. Marcus Goldfinch likely won't be there, but it's going to be a pre-trial meeting so we can discuss what's going to go into the trial, what I'm going to be requesting. It's going to be very informative at a minimum. I'm very curious to see what the judge has to say anyway about this case, because it's a case that I think should be very easy to adjudicate, given I have a written confessional by the defendant admitting to crimes. I mean, really, in the annals of dumb criminals getting themselves caught, this is going to be right up there. This is pretty high up. This guy was tricked into sending evidence of a crime and a confessional to somebody. That would be me. Thank you for the support there, Dewis and Para. Very much appreciated. We're on a monetized YouTube channel. They cut us off years ago, and maybe it's because of the lawsuit, but they remonetized the channel, and I'm taking great care to preserve this channel. So you'll note that the videos disappear, but if you're subscribed, you get them to your inbox right after. So I'm not keeping anything here. I'm not going to present a target. 133 arrested overnight at NYU campus Gaza protests. 133. I don't know if there's a significance here, but you heard earlier I was describing how multiple, the guy from the FBI in particular, but there are a lot of people saying there's going to be something like what happened in the Crocus Theater. So 133 arrested, at a Gaza protest. We're being told there's going to be another Crocus like ISIS attack. Well, how many people were killed at the Crocus City Hall Moscow attack? 133. So I'm seeing this number 133 as another connection to that terror attack now being directly correlated with these protesters. So you can kind of see the metascript build up here. Need more Godzilla screaming, says 737. Yeah, that's the Godzilla is the Kraken. Godzilla is a metaphor for the nuke. And what we are doing here is we are awakening a Kraken, a body of auto hoaxers, a body of off-world stage dwelling media critics who have exited Trutherville. They left Alex Jonestown, put down the Q pipes. We have quarantined ourselves into a fear-free zone. There are no chemtrails off-world stage. We exist in the realm where previously only the programmers could exist. We're in the area where you would consider us to be, let's say, deprogrammed. We're in the deprogrammed zone. Truthers are deeper into the program, as I was describing. But the idea here is the Kraken is when we reach critical raft. I put the number almost arbitrarily at 10,000. We need 10,000 people in the raft to create a viable and permanent new fixture on the world stage. And it has to remain pure. That's the reason why I'm making it a point to ferret out all of these trutherisms and orthodoxies, because we don't want to bring bad mental habits with us. We can do without the logical fallacies. We can do without the fear. The Kraken sound used to scare the pants off me. Diana South says it was loud. See, I don't hear it. I don't hear the Kraken. Ryler05 says 133 days from May Day to 9/11, or 19 weeks. 133 and 331 were very prominent around the Nipsey Hussle thing. March 31st, 133, 1 minute 33 seconds. He was in that video by Roddy Ricch in the cemetery. We've been talking about that number quite a bit, but again, it's been correlated with Crocus. A few things here also. We had Bat Appreciation Day a few days ago, and on that day the Copenhagen Tower burned and there was this DC Batman logo there. And by the way, tomorrow is Penguin Day. But the Batman thing. So check this out. Synchromorpheus found this. He said something else about the recent Spire fire. Right next to the Batman sign, it says, quote, "Fear nothing." He says, remember the Crocus Concert Hall attack that was just like Christopher Nolan's movie Tenet. So there we have a Christopher Nolan connection. Christopher Nolan, again, directed the Batman series, and the burning bat, the fire and the bat have been, he did the burning bat phoenix, the fiery hole in the building shaped like a bat, the burning bat sculpture at these award ceremonies. They did the bat as phoenix for years before the 2020, where the bat was the catalyst for the phoenix cycle, the burning down, build back better. So to have a bat at the scene of the Spire with the fire, with the DC logo, the DC Batman thing, that is very, very significant. And what Synchromorpheus is pointing out here is that at the Crocus thing, it was based on, or the scene looked like it was right out of the movie Tenet. And here you can see the Batman logo. It says "Fear nothing," and you see the fire. Now what's more, and this is again from Synchromorpheus's research, the smoke from the fire billowing above the "Fear nothing" sign, it says here, breathe in your fear. So breathe in your fear. Kind of interesting, considering, of course, that Oppenheimer and Fallout, Christopher Nolan and Jonathan Nolan, and both these movies are about fallout. It's something you obviously wouldn't want to breathe in. Batman Begins, clip 3. A rare blue flower. So there's something here about breathing in the fear. That's kind of the main theme. And then I have this. That sign, Fear Nothing Air Tox. So the name of the shoe on that sign is called Air Tox, and it has the Batman logo. So is this an airborne toxic event, like what we saw in East Palestine being inferred here? So to add on to this, I made reference to Operation Gotham Shield, which was a 2017 exercise conducted by FEMA that tested the civil defense response to nuclear weapons being used in New York. So taken together, the Christopher Nolan Batman thing, Oppenheimer, Jonathan Nolan, and Fallout are all connected to the PSYOP entertainment complex, from Boston bombing to the Joker shooting to even the Sandy Hook reference, but to 2020 and to the future nuking of wherever it happens. Now we're seeing Batman tied in to this burning spire with signage talking about airborne toxic materials, some kind of attack. And we could even attack, there's a deeper level of connection as well if we look at the near anniversary burning of the Notre Dame Cathedral, where the Crown of Thorns was rescued from a guy who was a hero at the Bataclan. It goes deep, but we're just noting here again, Batman, breathe in your fear, and this is posted by Synchromorpheus. And let me play a clip from that, because these could all be Fallout connections.
But a criminal is not complicated. What you really fear is inside yourself. You fear your own power. You fear your anger, the drive to do great or terrible things. Now, you must journey inwards.
And here's where he inhales something and he breathes in the fear. And again, Batman movies are just replete with predictive programming, concurrent programming, references to PSYOPs to come, PSYOPs past. Ryler says, May Day is also Batman Day. Didn't know that. Batman was, I believe, no, the grandfather of Batman, founded the Skull and Bones Society. Duas Impera says, apparently Dune spice is made of ground spores. Wouldn't want to breathe that in. And it's Dune where the Frank Herbert, is that, yeah, where he says fear is the mind killer. It's from Dune. The little death that brings obliteration. I will face my fear and permit it to pass over and through me. So the fear is the mind killer. It's very appropriate here. Again, off-world stage is a fear-free zone. If you're carrying fear, if you're bringing these red pills, you're basically a propaganda mule for alt media at this point. And I ask people, what are you scared of? Are you really scared of the chemicals in the chemtrails? Or are you scared that you're wrong? Or are you scared of taking action? Like, what is your fear? Joined by Jungle Jim. Thanks for joining. Joker 2 is coming. Says Kevin Mooring, the riots and protests have started. Yeah, a couple of things about Joker 2. Joker 2 riot scene was being filmed in front of the courthouse on 4/4/2023 when Trump was in there. And that was on the 44th birthday of Heath Ledger. And the new Joker is a guy named Phoenix, Joaquin Phoenix, which is, again, the dying, resurrecting. It's kind of tied in, this new Joker. But the significance of it is that there were Joker Batman connections to this Burning Man in front of the courthouse again. So you have this Joker Donald Trump Batman thing that's been ongoing, and the new Joker movie comes out on 10/4. 10/4, I guess, let's see, Sputnik 10/4/57, beginning of the space age. There's got to be some significance, but 10/4 is the date that movie comes out. Yeah, that's what I was wondering about. The gas. Thank you. Duas Impera says the psychosis-inducing gas that Cillian Murphy shopped around in Batman Begins. Erica Creech says, envision peace. Can we get upset with the students who are being told this is true about Gaza? And the penguin shall raft with the orca, and little child shall lead them. Beautiful. My position is anti-anti and anti-pro. I'm anti-war. I'm a peacenik. And if you're not anti-mind war, you're not anti-war. There is no anti-war movement. You know, the only legitimate anti-war movement is one that is taking the stance of the conscientious objector to Psywar. And if you're not objecting to the Psywar, you're not anti-war. And most people can't see it to even oppose it. And they take sides and take part in it. If you're voting, you're taking part. You're taking a side. If you're the anti, you've taken a side. If you're the pro, you've taken the side aside. And to me, I'm like, if you're not anti, and anti-pro, then you're on the stage. There's that movie War Games that has that tagline: "Strange game, the only winning move is not to play." And that's what I'm saying. Like I'm not going to play a losing game. Kent State University is going to have its 54th anniversary on May 4th. Something to look forward to. They're invoking that, of course, Kent State, because National Guard, protesters being shot. Then you have, of course, the National Guard being discussed right now. Are they going to bring out the National Guard to protect Jewish students from protesters? Fox Business says National Guard should be called out to protect Jewish students. So again, they're setting the stage for something. Howley demands Biden use National Guard to protect Jewish students amidst pro-Hamas campus protests. Yep, stage is set for something fake. Kyle Rittenhouse to speak at Kent State. That should be good. And meanwhile, Gage Grossarm is also doing speeches in order to counter the damage that Kyle Rittenhouse is doing. All right, let's see what else we have here. Dewis in Paris says, I could never understand rules of engagement as a kid. Now I see it as direction for the movie. The theater of Psywar. It's not an oversimplification to say it's all just a movie. We're not overstating. It's very difficult to overstate how much fake has trumped real and the sheer levels of fakeability, coupled with the credulity of the public. If the free thinkers who've broken free of the mainstream can still be convinced that pandas don't exist on terrible evidence, then they haven't made any progress at all. Another post here from Synchromorpheus. This is interesting. The sphere, the one that was between the Twin Towers, was damaged during the tragic events of September the 11th, but it endures as an icon of hope and the indestructible spirit of this country. The sphere was moved to this location on March 11th, 2002. So again, after 9/11, on the following 3/11, the sphere that was there between the Twin Towers was relocated. Happens to be 3.3 feet. The diameter of its base is 3.3 feet. But anyway, someone Violet was researching and said the stupid sphere came up on the news, and I'm looking at the details. So we find out that the sphere is connected to 3/11. You can find many 9/11, 3/11 connections, a lot of them. And the predictive programming is overlapping in many of the movies from Kubrick on. 2001 Space Odyssey has predictive programming for both of these psyops. So, there's so many movies you could list. Vanilla Sky, same thing. Predictive programming, connections to COVID. And let's see what we have here. There's something else about it. Oh, yes. The other thing here, the sphere was emblazoned with the letters Oz for the Emerald City scene in the 1978 movie The Wiz, which was based on The Wizard of Oz. The WTC represented the Emerald City in the movie. So that's fascinating. In other words, in the 1978 movie The Wiz, the word Oz is placed on the sphere. Now, why is this significant? Because Seattle was ground zero for 3/11. and Seattle was referred to as the Emerald City. So here you just have a connection between Ground Zero, Seattle, Ground Zero, 9/11, and the date 3/11. Fascinating overlapping connections here. What does it mean? It suggests to me that the next major 9/11 was going to be in Seattle, which it was, 3/11/2020. Although there are some who think that Seattle's going to get nuked, could be. But my point being, these were two ground zeros for the most transformative psyops of these generations. These are generational psyops, setting the stage for the whole globe, for the whole world. They're hitting a reset button. So 9/11, yeah, reset the stage. 19 years later, 3/11. So these connections are not coincidental. Look at The Matrix. Neo's birth date, 3/11. His expiration date on his passport, 9/11. They're constantly doing this. What is the message? 9/11 has to do with the fall of the West, the fall, the sinking of the Titanic, the fall of the Tower of Babel. Whereas 3/11 is the new order, the new age. So that the birth date of the Neo age and the passport expiration date, expiration of the old age. It dies with 9/11, reborn with 3/11. There's a story here, a meta scripted story. Let's see what else we have here. Passports and spheres. Right. Yeah, I'm surprised that the sphere didn't collapse into its own footprint with debris hitting it and stuff. You know, that's one of these conversations that you often hear with, like, Tucker and Rogan were having it. What happened to Building 7? And it's like blasphemy to say. It's unlikely it would have just fallen the way it did. It got pulled. Somebody pulled WTC7. But they never get into the subject of the whole thing was rigged. The whole area was a movie set. 127, Building 1, Building 2, and Building 7. 12/7, the anniversary of Pearl Harbor. Just another one of these links you can find. And before 9/11, the movie Pearl Harbor was out with Ben Affleck. And it was all about planes falling, crashing, and people running off to war, patriotism. And what's interesting then is that after 9/11, it was compared to Pearl Harbor. They said, oh, this is this generation's Pearl Harbor. And if you didn't know what Pearl Harbor was, you just watched a movie about it. Yeah, phones are open, 505-349-0420. Phones are officially open if you want to call in about any of the things we've discussed, mostly catching up on the last 48 hours. James Osman says, on vacation on a cruise in South America, what have I missed? We had a Burning Man outside of the Trump trial who had a manifesto about Peter Thiel and a corporate takeover of the world. It's like, you burned yourself for nothing, man. You totally burned yourself over propaganda. He shouted out Aaron Bushnell, who didn't really burn himself either. It's like the truth of it is much, much more, I guess, optimistic. You're like, oh, look, everything's so terrible, they're taking over. It's like, no, they already took over. They took over before you were born. You're in a sim. You're in a simulation and nothing matters. All of your activism is just disturbing your peace of mind. You're better off stepping back instead of going deeper. Salty says, enjoyed the video to Tim Face earlier, respectfully. Oh yeah, I am producing more video content, and just so you know, it's members only at first, but then it gets released to the general public after. And what I'm trying to do is incorporate video along with the live streams, because we're going to have a lot of reportage, interviews, reporting people on the streets, and it has to happen because we have to have a physical presence. We have to exist in the meatverse. And I think one of the best ways to proceed is to sort of set examples, set standards. So for example, if we're going to interview somebody, it's not going to be chasing them down the street with a phone cam, but it'll be we're sitting down somewhere, lighting appropriately, trying to create better content overall. But I think it's important to exist. That way you can weigh more on the world stage than those who are just trolls, who are just anonymous with no accountability. But yes, I am putting a lot more video content up. It's a lot faster also, just to hit play and go. So if you don't want to miss it, get your blue wrench. Join the Infinite Plane Society YouTube channel. As far as the documentaries go and the interviews go, all these different projects, the first one's going to be this QAnon documentary. I need to get that out. It's about 90 minutes long. And then after that, we have a documentary in progress for the Mandela effect. And look, I'm not going to get many Mandela affected to talk to me. I might need to recruit some of you to actually conduct some of these. Who knows? We'll see. But I am going to conduct an interview with some individuals. Like, I want to talk to a psychologist. I want to talk to a police interrogator, detectives, because what we're looking at, in my view, is more akin to faulty eyewitness testimony and false memories than reality shifts. So I'm going to get some expert opinions very soon. Let's see what else we have here. Yeah, phones are open again if you want to call in. Talked a little bit about Q, as much as I am not a fan. We're in the process of breaking down the big psyops of our time and where they come from. And, the mass media is so lazy, and alt media, they're all lazy. I have given them all the clues they need to reveal who is Q. And none of them are taking the bait or following the leads. And again, someone pointed this out. It's very incongruent that Alex Jones would talk to a guy from the WEF making Q-like claims about Elon Musk being dead, etc.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
And doesn't mention the fact that he knows who Q is. So if you missed this earlier, Alex Jones is talking to this guy.
Actually, he's alive. And
he is the son of Klaus Schwab's best friend. He's a WEF whistleblower. And Alex Jones and him are talking, and he's saying Elon Musk is dead. Listen to this.
No.
Coup against the globalists?
No. Excuse me. How many fighter jets did Klaus Schwab command, or some Elon Musk, or some Bezos? How many warships? Come on.
None.
Forget it. No. They're finished. Our problem was the satanic globalists, the Vatican, Israel, the Zionists. It's been handled as
well, what do you make of Elon Musk? Because he's certainly turned against the globalists. He thinks they're done.
No, that's not Elon Musk anymore. It's not Elon Musk. He's gone. Elon Musk is fake news. Elon Musk told people we go to...
Again, that's not Elon Musk. Elon Musk is fake news. Elon Musk is dead. He was executed at Guantanamo. It's sad but true, according to him. Here for now says you can't falsify memories. You can. It's called retroactive interference. There's a reason why I'm going to speak to a police investigator or detective, because there's this thing called the Innocence Project, where they find like 75% of exonerations are the result of faulty eyewitness testimony. And when you look at the questioning, you're like, well, how did they get these false answers out of eyewitnesses? Well, loaded questions. For the framing of the question, retroactive interference. There are ways that the interrogator, the person asking the question, can prompt you to imagine something. And they prompt it in such a way that the imagining and your actual memory are conflated, filed in the same spot. And the framing of a question can lead to a certain conclusion. So in other words, you can falsify through what they call, again, retroactive interference. And that's what's happening with the Mandela effect. It's not even my opinion, it's what is in fact happening. I can prove that, and you can't prove reality shifting. Duas in Paris says, Quantum of Conscious would be the best Mendoozled to talk to, but he lives in his own impenetrable 1-minute city. Here for now says, BS, you can't prove my memory wrong. Well, you can't prove your memory infallible. Have you ever misspelled a word? I'm pretty sure you have. I'm pretty sure if your memory is perfect, then you would have full memories, not shallow ones. Like, if you're Mandela affected, you're going to say, Timmy fell down the well. Everybody knows. Well, how did they get him out? You don't remember. Or you remember this great movie with Sinbad the Genie. Oh, you remember the movie? What was it about? Why don't you produce the script? Or you remember that Dolly had braces, but you're only referencing one scene. There's multiple scenes in the movie, but I don't think you could recall them to memory. Until you can tell me how they got Timmy out of the well, your Mandela effect memories are shallow. And memories are malleable. Every time you remember something, you alter it. And what's happening with the interrogator bias or the Mandela effect questioning is they are recalling your real memory and then bringing up something that doesn't exist under the framing of it. Do you remember it this way? And if they can get you to prompt it into your right now into your imagination and see it, they can, through what they call gaslighting, by getting you to question your perceptions, they can get you to accept the premise. It's called gaslighting. It's actually a form of psychological abuse. Like Mandela effect is actually a form of mind control. And it's not about, look, some people will say, I'm only affected by these Mandela effects. I don't care about this one, or candy wrappers. It's like, no, it has been categorically debunked. Some will say, well, I don't believe in the logos and the underwear cornucopia, but I do believe in the Bible ones. I'm sorry. They have been categorically debunked. There's no such thing as a Mandela effect in the sense that the Mandela effect would believe. There is a Mandela effect. It's called faulty eyewitness testimony. You are bearing false witness. In fact, whoever wrote the Ten Commandments, the God of the Ten Commandments, said something about bearing false witness. God hates the Mandela effect. Bearing false witness, false testimony. And that is what it is. And it's a cult of people who are all bearing the same false witness. And it's rooted, I believe, more in a desire to believe in miracles, to experience the miraculous. And people get mad when I break it down because they're like, you know what? You're blocking God. This is a religious thing for me, and you're pulling. And it's like, look, you don't have to lose anything. You're gaining an understanding of how you can be manipulated. That's closer to truth than grabbing onto another belief that you can't verify, that you accept with a faulty premise from the beginning, but logical fallacies. Specifically, everybody knows. Well, look, everybody knows is not an argument for anything. Everybody knows when that man went to the moon. Everybody knows we live on a ball. Everybody knows Timmy fell down the well. See, you can't use these arguments. Here for now says you can't debunk it. You can't doubt it because you haven't experienced it, but I can't debunk it. God has nothing to do with it. You don't have to debunk that which hasn't been bunked. I don't have to debunk the idea that chemtrails are poisonous because of unicorns flying in the stratosphere, marking their territory in the skies. Like, you can bring up any absurd proposition. I don't have to debunk it. I just take out my Hitchens razor and say, that which is presented without evidence, that extraordinary claim without evidence, can be dismissed without evidence. Commenter says, all you have is ridicule. It's a ridiculous theory. It's been debunked. And it's ridiculous that you continue to stand by gaslighting people into accepting it. And moreover, the Mandela affected do nothing but ridicule the so-called sheep and zombies who don't experience it. And there are rational explanations for all of it. I've debunked them one by one, but more importantly, it's been categorically debunked. I don't have to debunk them. You have to bunk them. If I am debunking them, I'm doing you a favor. I'm showing you how you can be programmed, because the methodology for creating the Mandela effect is used by the mainstream media. That is exactly what happens. The mainstream media will gaslight you. It will lie to you about your perceptions. It will lie about the past. It's the same thing. They will provide a limited selection of options for you to make your choice. And that's how the Mandela effect works. It's based upon a limited selection. Was it A or B? Explain to me why every Mandela effect has to be a binary. But at the end of the day, all you have is a false belief with no evidence to support it. That's all you have. And you have a consensus of people who agree with it. And even within that consensus, there's no agreement. Nobody can agree on what causes it. Is it CERN? Is it, what's the other explanation outside of CERN? But again, there's no evidence for it. It doesn't exist, and it also discredits you. Because if you're saying reality's fake, and this is the only reason why I first went after it, I'm like, wait, the same people who are saying 9/11 was just a psyop movie and nobody died are also saying reality doesn't exist. So if in the same breath you can say 9/11 is a lie, but reality's shifting, well then it's like, look, you're saying that truth is now subjective. Reality doesn't exist. So if reality's fake, what does it matter if the news is fake? And what you're doing when you're suggesting that you're, quote, Mandela affected, is you're admitting that you're a faulty eyewitness and that your testimony should not be regarded as credible. You're going to try to convince people that they're being lied to through a sophisticated propaganda system, but at the same time tell them that reality is constantly shifting. Sorry. We're trying to apply a rational deconstruction of the media through skepticism to media writ large, to the entire immersive illusion. The last thing that we need are subjective belief systems based on nihilism, destroying our credibility, our cohesion. So stay with your Mandela effect. Stay with your chupacabras, your Bigfoots, your space stations. I mean, I don't care. I'm not trying to tell anybody what to believe, but I'm just saying that's a mainstream belief for truthers, and it's a cool party trick. In fact, I was listening to this video recently about the psychiatrist was talking to some people about how memory works, and she said that she did this old experiment. She has a poster on her wall of Disneyland, and Bugs Bunny and Elmer Fudd are on the poster. She doesn't mention it, just the poster's there. Now, Elmer Fudd and Bugs Bunny are from Warner Brothers. They would be shot on sight if they stepped into Disneyland. They wouldn't be there. So the idea here, though, was just showing how your recollection is influenced by what is in your immediate surroundings, by what's being discussed, by what is currently in your awareness, what is recently in your awareness. So then when this psychiatrist asks her clients about their recollections from Disneyland, they would remember, quote unquote, Bugs Bunny being there with Mickey Mouse. And she would ask, oh, really? And what was Bugs Bunny doing? Oh, he had his carrot and a tail, big poofy tail. My point being, Bugs Bunny could not have been there. But by introducing Bugs Bunny into their frame of reference, they, quote, remembered him. Similarly, when you sit down and you read off a list of Mandela effects, every established Mandela effect that's already been put out there is already sowing the seed of false memories. People are now, they remember it because they've seen it. You've seen the monkey from that book with a tail and without a tail, Curious George. You've already seen it. You've seen the Mandela affected version of everything. You've seen Chick-fil-A without the K because it saturates the whole field. So even looking into the Mandela effect, you're now considered to be a tainted witness. Let's see what else here. This is where it's at. It says the Mandela effect is mainstream. There's a major motion picture about it. It's mainstream, but they refuse to debunk it because Mandela effect is part of the mainstream media's MO. They actually Mendoozle the masses all the time. They're constantly implanting false memories, and it works. Let me give you an example. There are people who have recollections of Pearl Harbor that just come right out of the movies. People say they remember stuff. Okay, let me bring this one up. Do you remember when Buzz Aldrin was talking to Conan O'Brien about Apollo 11? And Conan O'Brien was like, I remember when I was a kid, my parents woke me up, brought me downstairs so I could watch the moon landing. And Buzz says to him, no, you didn't. You didn't see it live. What you saw was an animation. So Buzz Aldrin actually has to correct Conan O'Brien on this whole thing, that he didn't actually have that memory. Let me play this. And so what I'm saying here is that this is how the Mandela effect works. Conan O'Brien has a false memory. You could call it a lie, you could call it self-deception, you could call it a Mandela effect. In my reality, it was on TV.
It's waking me up, and we went down and we watched you guys land on the moon,
No,
which
you
was
didn't. No, you didn't.
What?
Because there wasn't any television. There wasn't anybody taking a picture. You watched animation.
There wasn't anybody taking the picture up there. Wait a minute here. Are you saying here that Conan O'Brien's memory is perfect? Like the Mandela affected guy in the chat? Yeah, there's no way his memory could be wrong. Buzz, this must be a Mandela effect. Let me play this one more time.
Clearly, I think
He
anybody.
says, I remember very clearly.
Let's talk about this, because this is fascinating. I remember very clearly. I think anybody who was alive at the time does.
I remember very clearly. I remember my parents waking me up. Lie, 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 lie.
My parents waking me up, and we went down and we watched you guys land on the moon,
No,
which
you
was
didn't. No, you didn't.
What?
Because there wasn't any television. There wasn't anybody taking a picture. You watched animation. See, you associated what you saw with.
I have very hate.
Again, now he says I have very hazy memories. Right. So the idea that the memory is infallible, that it just records, that it can't be influenced by your environment, by the person asking questions. I'm sorry, but this is all very well understood. We're doing a whole documentary on the Mandela effect, and I'm doing this for a few reasons. The Mandela effect is not a spiritual path. And look, I respect religions. I respect religious beliefs, your subjective experiences, whatever it matters. I'm not discrediting that. But the Mandela effect is not a spiritual effect. It's as spiritual as getting hit on the head. Like it's a blow to your cognition. It is not a step towards higher knowledge whatsoever. In fact, it's almost like the dollar store version of synchronicity. You know, you can find a lot of meaning in the world without consulting mainstream misinformation psyops that are just there to make you look crazy. Erica says, Buzz says it happens, but the footage was faked. Yeah, what they do here is they present an animation concurrent with the landing so you can kind of visualize it. This is where it's at. It says Buzz is a great actor. Yeah, Buzz is a better actor than William Shatner. Shatner's a better astronaut, though. Been to way more simulated space environments than just one. Because to be an astronaut, you just have to go to a simulated space environment. Here for now says, why TF does everyone assume I'm a male? I don't care if people don't. I don't think anybody's assuming what you are, except wrong and Mendoozled. And for all we know, you could have changed because reality's shifting, right? If logos are changing, underwear is changing, bodies are changing. They say that there's more holes in the skull than before. They say that your heart has moved. I've heard so many Mandela effects about the body changing. And I'm like, okay, I can understand where a lot of these are coming from. But if bodies are changing, then maybe you shouldn't assume your own gender or your own sex. If you're Mandela affected and you believe reality is changing, then there's no reason to assume that if you were born a male tomorrow, that you will still have been born a male. I mean, if you're born a male, that tomorrow maybe you'll have been born a female. The Mandela effect would allow for that. This is where it's at. It says, where can we email you tips, Tim? You can contact me. There's a couple of ways. By Skype. You can also text me at 505-510-4226. The number's on the screen. timosmond007@gmail.com. Also find me on X at IPS Insider. Yeah, do some Paris says, heart has moved, so CPR on the hip tracks. Yeah, it does. You're talking about the South Korea, what was that, a mass trampling where everybody was doing CPR to the person next to them. They were doing it to the rhythm of Staying Alive. Great psyop. All right, here for now is using bad language to describe us. Look, I'm sorry that you've been Mendoozled. It is literally a psyop. Actually, I'm not sorry. Chemtrails are a psyop too. You should be happy. You should be happy that we are here helping you deconstruct psychological operations designed to constrain your understanding of the world. These are impairments. And if you care about truth, then you should move away from traps. And these are traps. It's what they really are. And one of the biggest traps is ego. Like, I can't admit that I was wrong. It would break my self-concept. Like I'm misspelling a word dilemma. It's like, oh, there's no way I misspelled a word. I can't be wrong. The dictionary changed. That is the general argument from the Mandela effect. What's more likely, that I'm wrong or that the world is wrong? So we have to get used to the concept that we have been deceived. And if you break down the psychological operation known as the Mandela effect, you will never fall for any similar effect again, any similar form of manipulation. And the same techniques are used all over the place. If you could reverse engineer the Mandela effect, you won't fall for any psyop in the future, I guarantee it. You won't fall for hearsay. You won't fall for any of these tricks. Take, for example, loaded questions. The sole reason people think that cirrus clouds following planes, anthropogenic cirrus clouds, are toxic is because of the loaded question, quote, what are they spraying? What are they spraying? It's a loaded question. The question should be, what's the trail? Because it's not a spray, it's hot air. If someone's cooking something and you walk in and you say, what are you burning? It's like, well, who's saying they're burning something? You see, you load the question. Salty Siren says, it's wild to think you're never wrong. I spend most of my time trying to debunk my own hypotheses. Well, the scientific method and methodology is really based on proving yourself wrong, finding where you're not right, checking to see that you are right, fact checking, reality testing, testing claims. It's about observations and predictability. And if it can't be proven wrong, then it's outside the purview of science. It's unfalsifiable. Like the transvestigation theory. Yeah, that's not science, it's pseudoscience. It's fake forensic anthropology because there's no wrong answers. Like, oh, well, that person is a male because of their brow ridge or something. But then the transvestigator will say, no, they had an implant. But then if they have a smooth forehead, they'll say, oh, that's a female because of a smooth forehead. So they make it so that any answer that they give is right. So if they can't be wrong, then they're not being honest. It falls outside of the purview of science and real observations. Now, some of these have easy explanations. If you go to Chick-fil-A, buy yourself some French fries, the crisscross fries, and look at the box. And it says Chick, C-H-I-C. It's like, oh, Chick-fil-A. Well, that's because the K is on the side of the French fry package. So your memory is being formed while you're looking at the French fries right there in your face, and the K is on the other side. See, that's it. It's that simple. That's how you could have a false memory formed. And then when somebody says, hey, do you remember Chick-fil-A with a K or not? You're being honest with yourself when you say, I don't remember the K. Well, now it means you jumped into a different reality, or does it? Commenter asks if I agree that chemtrails block the sun. Chemtrails don't exist, and condensation trails don't block the sun in any meaningful way. I mean, clouds block the sun, sure. No, they don't block the sun. They provide shade beneath them, but I wouldn't say they block the sun. The clouds are fairly low. When you look at the atmosphere, and whatever you think about the distance of the sun to the earth, the idea that condensation trails are blocking it is NASA propaganda. Environmentalists want you to think these condensation trails are increasing global warming. They even say on 9/11 that the world was a little cooler because the planes had all been grounded. Thank Allah for staving off global warming for one day. So no, I don't accept the NASA premise that we need to do something about the airlines because it's hurting Gaia. You see, chemtrail theory is right-wing climate change. Turns you into a bunch of right-wing Gretas. Like, how dare you to the chemtrails, they call them. And it's the same thing. It's skyphobia. And it's a conspiracy theory, no more extreme or no more unbelievable and absurd than climate change. It's like, look, the world's going to end because of what man's doing. And look, it's bifurcated, it's predictable, you're in a box. Left wing is like, oh, climate change. Blame the private sector because we love government and we hate the private sector. The right wing says, oh, we love the private sector, we hate government. So we're going to blame climate change on secret government projects like geoengineering. If it's bifurcated, if it's split down the middle, if it's partisan, it's fake. And if you believe in chemtrails and you've never protested, if you've never sued an airline, then do you really believe it? Do you really believe that the children around you are being poisoned and you haven't done anything to stop it? Why not? Is there something in the chemtrails that make you apathetic? One thing has to be said. The chemtrail believers are very cowardly. They're cowards. Honestly, it's pathetic. You're being outdone by the climate change people who will lay down in the roads and block traffic. They will go into museums and throw tomato sauce on priceless paintings. They will set themselves on fire at tennis matches. Climate change people will glue themselves to airplanes. Like, you don't have any chemtrail activists willing to do anything to save the planet. They just sit there and cry about it. Meanwhile, the climate change people are all about it. All right, let's see. Yeah, I put the guy on timeout because he's calling us names. Oh, look, I'm sorry I don't agree with you. I should stop apologizing. At this point, I don't want to apologize anymore. I'm not sorry that you took the low-hanging fruit. Not sorry you took the bait. Not sorry that you took alt brainwashing. It's like, I'm not brainwashed because I'm against the brainwashing. No, you took the pre-packaged alt brainwashing written by the same people. But we want to draw this out. We need to draw out disagreement. The off-world stage is not a big tent. Everybody's welcome. Q is a big tent. Everybody's welcome. We don't care what you believe, as long as you don't trust the media. Meanwhile, they're being flooded with alternative media claptrap. And that's kind of what I'm saying, is we need to draw out the distinctions, draw out the arguments, make people mad if that's what it takes, because the end result will be quarantine, it'll be purity, and we need to have a pure core in order to blow this up. And our objective is to blow this up. Our objective isn't to regurgitate mainstream or to hope that they pay attention to us, to get some people's champion like Tucker Carlson to speak truth to power. That's not what we're doing at all. What we're doing is managing the I guess parallel is the best way to describe it, the parallel media's growth. I mean, we can't say anti-media because we're not taking the reflexive anti-position, but we are working on growing this outside the box, what I call parallel media platform. And this is something that is completely outside of the controlled opposition to the mainstream. It represents true skepticism, not the knee-jerk anti-position, not the other side of a controlled dialectic. But the purity is necessity. Like, we have to be pure right away because we're outnumbered by the impure. So, for example, if we decide, okay, look, we're not getting enough people to embrace skepticism, can we just let some of the Mandela effect in here? We'd be outnumbered. We'd be outnumbered by the non-skeptical media. All alt media is non-skeptical. We don't want to merge with that. We have to break away from that. Commenter says, Tucker called out macroevolution, but then just claimed it was God. Same as the God-loving flat earthers. Yeah, well, Tucker Carlson is one of these people's champions, a fake populist, and his objective, his purpose there is to, I kind of think that his whole purpose, we're talking about Tucker Carlson, is to make it seem like somebody's doing something. Like somebody's going to ask about JFK and the UFOs. I just got a message from someone. I don't know if my ringer's broken or what, but somebody sent me a link to a YouTube video, a YouTube short. So I am going to possibly play it. 505.
Are you sure nobody will find me?
Okay, here we go. It's a cartoon with P. Diddy and Epstein. And look, P. Diddy is more Epstein than Epstein. I mean, Epstein is reported to have done a lot of stuff, but we don't really see it. But there's a lot of creepy videos floating around P. Diddy. The Nickelodeon stuff is just the worst.
Here, Epstein. You're safe here, Puffy. Nobody knows about this place. Elvis, Princess Diana, JFK, they've all been here for decades. And I've been here since '96. Tupac, I thought I killed you dead. That's what I wanted everyone to think. So how'd you fake your death, Puffy? Fake my death? Why would I do that? That's the whole point of this place. Nobody will look for someone they think is dead. You gotta...
Okay, this is pretty good. This is a Diddy goes on the run and hides where no one will find him from Riot Comedy. I will post that link below if you want to watch the whole thing. It looks like Crisis Actor Island, which, yeah, this is parody, but this is literally how it is. Pretty much. All right, it looks like our phone is open, but Ringer's not working for some reason. I'm getting messages from people. They're sending me messages. Appreciate that link. I'll put it in the chat. Again, if you want to watch that from Riot Comedy. Somebody asked if I wrote the script. You know, we were talking about this stuff, and these scripts write themselves, to be honest. We were doing South Pole. In fact, one of our episodes was about helmet Karens. That when space junk gets normalized, people not wearing helmets will be chastised by the Karens wearing helmets. And now you have space junk hit some guy's house in Florida, and it was still hot when they pulled it out of the hole in the floor. So they've already made that real. A hyperstition. They inserted space junk onto the world stage, and now it exists. And you could literally fake it. I've been wanting to make some space junk art for some time, like sculptures that are designed to look like space junk. But if you got a piece of space junk and just dug a hole in your backyard like a crater, you throw it in there, you know, light some fireworks or something, then you call the news and have a friend call, and your friend says, yeah, I saw a fireball come out of a light in the sky I thought was a space station and hit my friend's house. Your friend calls and they say, space junk hit my house. The news media would be forced to believe it's real. On what basis could they call it fake? Are they conspiracy theorists? Are they flat earthers? Are they dangerous misinformationists? And look, I do think we're being targeted, and I'm not being paranoid. We're the only ones talking about news benders on a regular basis, on the news bending of the mass media, how they write the news in advance, act it out on the world stage. We've been discussing this quite a lot. And this recent Burning Man, as this Maxwell Azarello's manifesto said, that a small group of people with truth-colored lenses could bend history. I'm like, this is really close to what we're talking about. I'm talking about exposing the news bending, the bent horizon, how they bent our history, and now his manifesto specifically makes a mention of that. Oh yeah, the P.O. Box. Let me put a note here. I'm getting a P.O. Box. People are going to send me cyborg parts. I'm creating these cyborg penguins. This is where it's at. It says, I got one for you, Tim. The guy who went on a rampage at Trump's property said he was a Diddy sex slave. Oh yeah, okay. Here's the link. During a strange interview in 2018, shooting suspect Jonathan Oddi, O-D-D-I, told investigators...
Do you know Sean Combs?
Puff Daddy?
Yeah.
P. Diddy, whatever you call himself these days. Yeah, go ahead.
The man who allegedly opened fire inside of one of former President Donald Trump's Florida hotels several years ago made some wild statements to law enforcement in his interviews, saying he was a sex slave for Sean Diddy Combs. Well, now that federal investigators have raided two of the rapper's homes and an arrest and indictment in a sex trafficking operation could be imminent, the man's comments sound a little less crazy. We'll talk about it. Well,
all right. I had not heard about this, but this individual, his name is Jonathan Oddi, went into one of Trump's buildings, fired some rounds in 2018, and made these claims that he was a slave. That's fascinating. 2018. Doesn't sound random. Salty says Diddy looks like Dracula. Commenter says, what do you think about spearheading a movement to explore the earth in a straight line? I'd donate to that. If the government stops us, it could be recorded and shared. Well, this is the thing. We got behind Mad Mike. In 2018, the New Yorker covered it. They did a recent article earlier this month about what we did. And Our objective was get this daredevil on the news, mainstream the flat earth topic, platform him so he can speak to every news agency, get all this attention, and then steer it towards Exploring Again, one of the rocket's sponsors. Exploring Again's objective was to go in a straight line, to go deep, deep south. But here's what happened. Mad Mike does his launch in 2018 successfully. We paid for it, he did it, we got the attention. The Flat Earth Conference didn't want him there, so we showed up anyway. They didn't want anything to do with our exploration attempts with exploringagain.com. So you know what they did? They lied. Robbie Davidson, who made a documentary with a pedo who's in jail, Robbie Davidson put out this press release that they were going to do a flat earth cruise in 2020. So now the news media is saying, are flat earthers going to Antarctica? And he said, no, we're just going on a cruise. So he got in front of the rumor that wasn't really a rumor. We put out a press release that Exploring Again was going deep into Antarctica to make the case for flat or round. And before we could get any sort of news traction on that, they kind of co-opted the story. So immediately after this fake flat earth cruise gets announced, meanwhile they're not promoting Mike or exploring, immediately after, Logan Paul comes out announcing he's going to Antarctica. So he gets invited to head the next Flat Earth Conference. So now you have 2 expeditions to Antarctica that are being discussed. And then you have this character named Jay DeCaspy, who turns out to be a pen name of Eric Dubé. He somehow gets into Forbes, and he claims he's filming a documentary going around Antarctica. So now you have 3 different news stories about flat earthers and Antarctica that aren't our project. So our project's ability to gain any kind of attention was really kind of diffused. And I think it was intentional. But what's more, this Jay DeCaspy never did anything. Logan Paul was only joking. He made a joke video about it. And the cruise was never meant to go there. So that happened. And then, of course, after Mad Mike's launch with the Science Channel in 2020, then we went into lockdown. So no, we definitely made an effort. We definitely had a plan. We had a plan to grow the movement around this premise just to get it solved. And we saw it sabotaged and ignored at every turn. Not that it's over yet, but straight lines, yes. And I was against Jay DeCaspy. I was like, why would you want to go in a big circle? We got to go in a straight line. Nothing else will answer the question. But yeah, to me, it's not even flat or round. It's about open or closed system, and also testing their model. Not the shape, not the size, but are they hiding anything? Okay, let's see here. Fascinating comments in the chat. Diana South says, Diddy looks like Count Chocula. Fascinating. Wasn't there an Eddie Murphy movie where he played Dracula? They called it Blackula. They used to call it Blaxploitation. Some of these movies are just so terrible. Like, looking back, like, you can see why the world is where it is right now. If you look at the collective psyche and what kind of garbage has been just dumped into it. All right, let's try to get back on track. We delved into some Q insanity. Talked about Earth Day. Now, is there anything NASA does that isn't weird? So NASA they don't use straws or bags anymore in microgravity. Now they drink out of what they call capillary cups. I don't know if you've seen these capillary cups. I mean, for lack of a better description, they look like handheld miniature urinals. I mean, just the strangest things. And then they have a syringe. They extract liquid out of it and they squirt it into their mouths. Up there in fake space? Or is it down there? Is it in a Hollywood basement? I might just start referring to him as being down there. Anyway, it's slightly more believable than Don Petit drinking coffee out of that container where you can see the coffee is like a CGI overlay. Yeah, a lot of people are saying what? Yeah, a lot of people are. I'm reading your comments. So again, this is called the capillary cup. Let me just play this clip. This is NASA showing you how they drink beverages. This is from Engineering Explained. Let's see what else we have here. Going through my comments. Let's see here. Yeah, I got blocked on Twitter by Mindy Robinson. I'm actually kind of proud about that. I wish I could publish my blocked list. Like, you know, on your account, it shows you how many people you're following, how many people follow you, how many subscribers. I'd like to have a number here that shows how many people have blocked me, how many I've blocked. I mean, that's useful information. I wish you could export your blocked list. I would share mine. I have blocked so many of these Gematria prophets and QAnoners. All right, I'm going through your comments. I think we're just about done here. I want to make sure I haven't missed anything. N.A. Literalist says, how does recycled space water taste? Did you know that they do, in fact, recycle on the space station, and they do drink recycled urine, which is normal? And it's not as bad as it sounds, you know, just on the face of it. But the part that I find interesting is that the Russians drink water. The cosmonauts drink water. But the Americans drink the recycled water, or recycled. Here's an article about it, actually. Americans and Russians drink different waters on the ISS. So the Americans drink the recycled urine, and the Russians refrain. And I always thought this has got to be some kind of an inside joke or something. Maybe it's a power move where the Russians, you know, won't do that. I'm not quite sure, but that is actually the case. U.S. astronauts drink it, Russians don't. Although Lane Carter says it just tastes like bottled water. But Russians refuse. If you've seen the movie ISS, it's terrible. But it has this breakdown of the relationship between the Russians and the Americans because there's a war down below, a lot of nukes. It came out on 1/19, very significant. But one of the more significant things about that movie is that there are no loose hairs. The female astronauts all have ponytails. The hair is slicked back. There's no loose hairs. And why is that? It's because we're watching, and they knew we were watching. And I think they wanted to make sure that we're not able to effectively criticize by juxtaposing the movie with the real thing. And it's because the real thing looks faker than the movie, and they had to kind of diminish that. I think that's really the agenda there. And I made it a point to say here, I'm like, look, if the movie uses CGI hair, it's going to make the ISS hairspray hair look really bad. And I think I've been vindicated on that. Okay, well, this is Chief Crow. Space is fake AF. We'll be likely hanging out in the Discord or Gilded. So if you want to continue, we have a lot to discuss, as always. And we do have an open voice chat where we're gathering more information. There's just so much happening right now. We're about to see some Major League PSYOP, and it's likely going to be the result of the violence on the college campuses. That might be the backdrop. And then things should accelerate from there. Tomorrow's the anniversary of Kent State, something to look forward to. And right-wing Israeli groups are sacrificing red cows, hoping for an apocalypse. And what else was there? I think we pretty much covered everything. This has mostly been a catch-up stream. And I'm going to find out what's wrong with the phones. Gremlins, possibly. One more time, I'm just making sure I haven't missed anything. I guess it's the college campuses that we're going to be watching out for. So I'll be keeping an eye on that. We've thoroughly debunked the recent Burning Man PSYOP. Now we're just deconstructing the story. But there's no reason to think that that actually went down. And one of the reasons why I enjoy watching these PSYOPs, like I mentioned earlier to that comment, that we have to be informed. Not under-misinformed, but informed about the misinformation. So instead of being unaware of the guy who burned himself or believing it really happened, we've learned about the special effects that went into creating the illusion. So we have informed non-belief, not knee-jerk disbelief, not automatic belief, but an informed disbelief. All right, this is Space is Fake AF, Chief Crow. Appreciate all the comments and support.
Because you can see the stars.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and
we were never able to see stars from the lunar surface or on the daylight side of the moon.
It's not black and white. I mean, it's black, but there's all kinds of little polka dots.
Space is fake AF. Space is fake AF.
There's more than stars. You can see planets. You can see moons.